Chapter 596. 100 years ago, on a rainbow day after the rain, a baby boy was born in the Mu family's west courtyard. Because he was born of a concubine, the baby boy had never received the love of his father or his family. It was as if he had been abandoned by the whole world. It was such an ordinary child who rose from nothing. In just 100 years, not only did he break through Wu Huang, but he also took control of the huge Mu family and became the new city lord of Heavenly Mandate City. That was right. He was Mu Changhong, Mu Honglian's father. He was a very idealistic and ambitious cultivator. Under his management, Heavenly Mandate City developed rapidly, and its strength rose steadily. Finally, it was rated as a royal city. When he was middle-aged, his entrepreneurial passion was no longer there. Mu Changhong immersed himself in martial arts and pursued a higher realm. The most talked about by the world was, although Mu Changhong had supreme power and wealth, he only loved his wife. He didn't even have a confidant, let alone a concubine. There was nothing wrong with such a person. However, it was because he liked to brag when he drank too much that his daughter was still unmarried. Because he had no children, he gradually withdrew from the political scene and handed over power to Mu Honglian. He hoped that his daughter could inherit his will and make Royal City more prosperous. After coming out of seclusion, the first thing he asked was whether southwest Yangzhou was peaceful. It showed that he had been in seclusion for a long time. "Father," Mu Honglian said, "not peaceful." "Not peaceful?" Mu Changhong frowned and said, "Could it be that Zhuo Chaochuan of Xinjiang County started a war when I was in seclusion? No wonder he was the city lord." Even if he was in seclusion, he could feel that the county chief of Xinjiang County was not a person who knew his place. "Father," Mu Honglian hurriedly said, "I just received news that the Demon's Sect and Murdering Shrine sent 4 Wu Huang peak cultivators to southwest Yangzhou." Demon's Sect? Murdering Shrine? Mu Changhong sneered and said, "These two evil sects have no enmity with southwest Yangzhou. Why would they send cultivators here?" "Because," Mu Honglian paused and said, "Father, it's a long story. I need to tell you slowly." She needed to tell him everything about Jun Changshao and his sect of all times, but her confidence was too great to be summarized in just 1 or 2 sentences. Actually, Jun Patriarch's entire life could be summed up with the word handsome. Shua! Mu Changhong raised his hand, and space suddenly condensed as if it was being torn apart by some kind of power. Mu Honglian, who was in the academy, felt a suction force. She merged into the distorted space and appeared in the main hall of the city lord's mansion. Spatial transference. Situ Haoyan's eyes were filled with envy. He was now at the peak of Wu Huang. Although he was only a little bit away from the half-step Wu Sheng, it was difficult for him to grasp the ability to manipulate space. What? In the main hall of the city lord's mansion, Mu Changhong stood up with joy in his sharp eyes when his daughter heard about the Iron Bones sect and Jun Changshao, especially the cultivation of the sword and martial kings. He didn't expect that the boasting he had made after drinking would come true one day. "Daughter." He stopped Mu Honglian from continuing and hurriedly asked, "Are you sure that kid is less than 20 years old?" "Yes." "What's his appearance?" "Sect Master Jun has a valiant appearance and looks talented." Jun Changshao was really good-looking. Mu Honglian had to admit that. "What's his character?" Mu Changhong asked. He didn't ask how he became strong or how his sect rose, but asked about his appearance and character. Mu Honglian immediately realized something. She blushed and said, "Father, what are you thinking about?" "Ha ha ha." Seeing how shy his daughter was, Mu Changhong slammed the table and laughed. "Father will prepare the betrothal gifts and go to Azure Sun County to propose." Mu Honglian was speechless. "Father, is there a girl who proposes to the guy?" "Daughter," Mu Changhong said seriously, "it's easy to find a 2-legged person, but it's not easy to find a 3-legged toad. For your lifelong happiness, it's okay even if we take the initiative." "Father." Mu Honglian frowned. "I'm talking about serious matters." "Ha ha ha." Mu Changhong laughed. It's rare for my daughter to be so shy. This little guy called Jun Changshao must be the son-in-law of my Mu family. Mu Honglian was about to cry. Actually, she didn't know that City Lord Mu was feeling too guilty. Now that he had finally met the three-legged toad, how could he let him run away so easily? Jun Changshao, gugugugu, this kid beat up the 5 fourth-rate sects from the West Cloud State? After hearing what Jun Changshao had done recently, Mu Changhong almost flew to the sect of all times and held his hand affectionately. My good son-in-law, you did well. There's more. There's more. Tell me quickly. Mu Honglian told him about what happened in the northeast Lu state. City Lord Mu, who had been through a lot, also frowned when he heard that the extreme coldness palace was almost destroyed. This is a hothead. Although he could hold his head high when he brought people to other states to cause trouble, if he didn't handle it well, it would escalate to a standoff between two states. What does this have to do with the Demon Fiend sect and the Deicide Hall? Mu Changhong was confused. Mu Honglian said, just yesterday, Jun Patriarch brought people to wipe out the two sects branches in the southwest Yang state. Mu Changhong stood up and said, this kid actually did what I didn't dare to do. How could he allow others to sleep beside his bed? After the heavenly mandate Imperial City was promoted to the Imperial City, he had thought about clearing out all the branches of the major foreign forces in the state. But he didn't take action because he wasn't strong enough to fight against the third-rate evil sections. He had to wait for the right time. This time, when he came out of seclusion, his cultivation was half a step away from Wusheng. City Lord Mu would definitely plan and find a groundless excuse to pull out all the nails under his eyes. Who would have thought? This little guy named Jun Changshao was one step ahead of him. Ha ha ha. Mu Changhong laughed out loud and said, his temper and style are too compatible. How can he not be my son-in-law? Father. Mu Honglian said, we are talking about business. Mu Changhong sat down again and said, daughter, your future happiness is the most important business of your father's life. As a parent, didn't he think about his child's future? So even if it was just wishful thinking of City Lord Mu, there was nothing wrong with it. Mu Honglian didn't want to be entangled with her father on this issue. She said, 2 third-rate evil sects and 4 peak Wu Huang are about to come. Father, how do you plan to deal with them? Needless to say. Mu Changhong stood up with his hands behind his back. His eyes were cold and fierce. If they dare to touch a hair of the warriors of Yangzhou in the southwest, I will make them pay 100 times the price. Everyone stood up. Cheers for City Lord Mu. Ha! At this moment, he released his spiritual thoughts and captured the ripples in the sky. A stream of light was moving forward at an extremely fast speed. The momentum it emitted was comparable to his. The place it was heading to was Qingyang County. Could it be that the demon sect and the god-slaying hall not only sent peak Wu Huang, but also a half-step Wusheng? Swish! Mu Changhong's figure flashed, and he appeared in the sky outside the imperial city. He chased at a speed that was hard to see with the naked eye. Chapter 597. Sect of All Times. Jun Changshao sat in the main hall, happily counting the natural spirit stones in his interspatial ring. After finding the Demon Fiend Sect spirit stone mine, he took it without hesitation. What a coincidence! This medium-sized mine was almost emptied out. The Demon Fiend Sect started counting and prepared to send 100,000 spirit stones to their headquarters. But before they could move, Jun Patriarch led people over. No wonder Yin Shangye was furious. After all, that was 100,000 natural spirit stones. The 2 peak Wu Huang who were charging over didn't want to cause trouble for the Sect of All Times. They just wanted to get back the spirit stones they lost. If we use these spirit stones to develop the sect, we'll definitely be able to increase our strength, Jun Changshao murmured. With so many disciples, the supply of spirit stones in the mountain was a bit tight. 100,000 natural spirit stones were worth a lot. Settling the debt this time went very smoothly. He was a bit disappointed that he didn't complete any hidden missions. Actually, with 20,000 contribution points, June Patriarch wasn't in urgent need of them. He needed experience talismans because he was only one step away from reaching the peak and triggering an epic mission. Whoosh! June Changshao walked out of the main hall in a good mood. Elder Wei stood outside, looking up at the sky with a worried expression. Elder Wei, what are you thinking about? The weather is changing. It's going to rain soon. June Changshao looked at the dark clouds pressing down on them. Elder Wei said with a serious expression, Patriarch, I have a bad feeling. What's wrong? June Changshao asked. Elder Wei said, the sect has been too ostentatious recently. I'm afraid a calamity will happen. It's fine. June Changshao said, I've already ordered Elder Zhen to set up a formation at the foot of the mountain. If anyone comes to cause trouble, we'll definitely blow them up. After having enough fun outside, he came back and thought about it himself. The two third-rate heretical sects definitely wouldn't let him off so easily after acting so arrogantly. Although there was a sect protecting Grand Formation, for safety reasons, he still ordered Zhen Dijuan to set up various formations at the foot of the mountain in case of emergency. Elder Wei said, Zhen Dekho is only a formation king in the end. When the enemy is stronger, it will be harder for the formation to resist. For example, the half-step Wusheng can easily destroy the foundation of the formation by simply shaking the space, thus rendering it ineffective. June Changshao had also heard about the half-step Wusheng. Strictly speaking, this was a level between Wusheng and the peak of Wuhuang. King Wu and Wuhuang didn't say anything. There were Wusheng and Martial Grand Emperor, which could be considered a separate division among the higher realms. June Changshao said, as far as I know, there aren't many Wusheng on the Falling Star continent. Half-step Wusheng shouldn't be seen everywhere either. Do you think a powerhouse at this level would bother with worldly affairs instead of pursuing martial arts? Elder Wei said, I'm just making an analogy. Don't worry. June Changshao said, it'll be fine. Whoosh whoosh at this moment, a vast force condensed in the sky and instantly turned into a giant palm print, which pressed down with unparalleled power. This sudden turn of events caused Elder Wei's expression to change greatly. When he felt the terrifying spiritual energy, he blurted out, half-step Wusheng. At this moment, the smile on June Changshao's face froze, and a strong sense of foreboding rose in his heart. My Elder Wei. You really have a crow's beak. June Changshao. In the sky, an angry voice that shook the space suddenly came, you bullied my extreme cold palace. Today, I'm here to pay you back 100-fold. Whoosh whoosh, the giant palm print directly shattered the dark clouds and pressed down from above like a meteorite from outer space. A strong murderous aura rose within the range of Iron Bone Mountain. At this moment, all the martial artists in the 8 cities of Azure Sun County heard the angry roar from half-step Wusheng and the giant palm print that appeared out of nowhere in the sky. They were so scared that their faces turned pale, and their hearts trembled. It's over. Xie Guangquan was shocked. If that terrifying palm print pressed down, not to mention the sect of all times, even the entire Iron Bone Mountain would be turned into ruins. The supreme power contained the will to not be disobeyed. Even the distant Azure Mountain sect saw the palm print clearly, and their faces turned ugly. June Changshao's heart trembled under the pressure, but he hurriedly activated the sect protection array and shouted, activate the spirit armor. Buzz! Buzz! In an instant, all the disciples in the inner and outer courtyards of the sect of all times released their spirit energy and formed armor in front of them. However, they deeply realized that the power was too terrifying, and they could not resist it. Are we going to die? This was the only thought in the minds of Li Qingyang and the others. Damn it! Yi Xingchen, who had just walked out of the training tower, felt the terrifying pressure and said angrily, if I had the cultivation of my previous life, this power would be nothing more than the light of a firefly. Unfortunately, he did not have it now. Therefore, under half-step Wusheng's killing move, Yi Xingchen's body was restrained, and he could only watch helplessly as the palm print pressed down. Not good. Not good. He Woody's face also turned ugly. He had used up all his cultivation to escape the pursuit of a powerful enemy, and now he had to experience life and death in the mortal world. This was too fucked up. Whoosh whoosh at this time, in the outer courtyard of the Sect of all times, monstrous flames rose into the sky. Little Long Long activated his second combat form, turning into a giant. He kicked off the ground and shot out of the Sect protecting array like a cannonball. He angrily shouted, "No one is allowed to harm my master." As he spoke, the barefoot Xiao Moxian was already standing in front of him, her eyes filled with unprecedented seriousness. She said, "Little ugly bug, today you and I will fight side by side for my master." Paw! Little Long Long slapped out, sending the cute little girl into the Sect protecting array. He looked up at the palm print pressing down, his eyes resolute. "Annoying woman, don't get in the way. Brother Long Long. A real man." Whoosh whoosh at this time, the monstrous palm print pressed down. Little Long Long looked at Jun Changshao, a brilliant smile on his face. Then, he looked up and flames erupted in the sky. His entire body instantly transformed, turning into a crimson vicious beast. Horns like a deer, head like a camel, eyes like a rabbit, and neck like a snake. Belly like a snake, scales like a fish, palms like a tiger, and ears like a cow. Stepping on the void, his 4 feet were covered in flames, and he had sharp claws like an eagle. This was a dragon. This was a 5-clawed divine dragon. Seeing Little Long Long transform into a body that represented the totems of China, Jun Changshao was dumbfounded. Roar! A dragon's roar shook the 9 heavens. Little Long Long dragged his long body, bringing with it endless flames as he rushed towards the vast palm print pressing down. "No!" Jun Changshao roared, his face ferocious. The palm print pressing down was simply too terrifying. Even if Little Long Long's flames had reached the limit, rushing forward was no different from striking a stone with an egg. "Not allowed! Not allowed!" Jun Changshao's eyes turned red. Strong winds instantly surged around his body. He pulled out his 40-meter-long saber and locked it onto the palm print pressing down. Freeze! Freeze for this father! Unfortunately, no matter how he manipulated it, the palm print that carried with it a supreme majesty continued to crash down, completely unaffected by the shackles of space. Although the unstoppable saber after the Bankai was very strong, it was still no match for the half-step Wusheng. Without this saber, Jun Changshao had lost his biggest trump card. At this moment, he could only watch Little Long Long meet the vast palm print with his eyes wide open. Boom! A deafening explosion came from the Great Sect Protection Formation. The entire earth seemed to have lost all its color in an instant. Jun Changxiao's heart was bleeding. Little Long Long rushed over like this. In the face of absolute power, it was definitely doomed. Crack! Crack! The space on Mount Iron Bone collapsed in a large area. It was as if a mirror had been blasted into pieces. The power of the half-step Wusheng was truly terrifying. Whoosh! A stream of light rushed through the formation and then crashed to the ground. Little Long Long returned to his original appearance and fainted on the ground. Fuck you! Jun Changshao cursed angrily. The next second, he was dumbfounded. Because the violent energy had completely dissipated, a dignified middle-aged man appeared above the Great Sect Protection Formation. He pressed one hand against the void, and a solid defensive boundary appeared, covering the entire Mount Iron Bone. Little bastard! Mu Changhong turned his head and collapsed. I kicked it down to save it. Do you have to curse me? After that, he looked at the half-step Wusheng hanging in the sky and said, Who gave you the courage to unleash your cultivation without restraint in my territory? Chapter 598. Little Long Long was not blasted down by the palm print, but by Mu Changhong's kick. Although the way he landed was a little awkward, it was not a big deal. Why did he faint? Because the ultimate explosion was too much for his body to bear. Jun Changshao breathed a sigh of relief and then glared at the old man who gradually appeared in the sky. How could the fourth-rate extreme cold palace have a half-step wusheng? Elder Wei and Elder Zhen were also very puzzled. Under normal circumstances, the standard of a fifth-rate sect was a martial king, and the upper limit of a fourth-rate sect was Wu Huang. A force with a half-step wusheng could be classified as a third-rate force. As for what Elder Wei was worried just now, he was worried that the Devil Slayer sect and the God-slaying Hall would send such a strong cultivator. In the end, it was the strong cultivator from the extreme cold palace who came first. Mu Changhong was also puzzled. However, at this moment, he was more angry. A half-step wusheng was already among the top cultivators in the Falling Star continent. How dare they come here without warning? How much did they look down on Yangzhou in the southwest? Martial kings and above were not allowed to participate in secular wars. There were also unwritten rules between states. Top cultivators could come and go as they pleased, but they could not attack as they pleased. Because their power was too strong, the damage caused would be unimaginable. Even if it was not for the sect of all times today, Mu Changhong would not let it go. Who are you? The Supreme Elder of the Extreme Cold Palace asked in a deep voice. Mu Changhong said, the City Lord of the Heavenly Mandate Royal City. So it is City Lord Mu. The Supreme Elder of the Extreme Cold Palace said so, but he muttered in his heart. When did the City Lord of the Royal City break through to the half-step wusheng? If he had known this would happen, he would not have come here with such great momentum. It was a coincidence. Both of them had just broken through not long ago. Because of Jun Changshao, they were originally at odds with each other, but now they were facing each other in the sky of Qingyang County. City Lord Mu. The Supreme Elder of the Extreme Cold Palace said, this man brought people to Lu State in the northeast and almost destroyed my Extreme Cold Palace. I want to ask, who gave him the courage? As he spoke, he gradually withdrew his aura, no longer exuding killing intent. They were both half-step wusheng, and the other party was the City Lord of Wang City. Naturally, they could not be so unscrupulous. However, he was already here, and his killing intent had been exposed. Since he was already riding a tiger, there was no way he could back down. Mu Changhong said coldly, a fourth-rate sect can't beat a fifth-rate sect from my prefecture, and you still have the nerve to ask. Don't you find it embarrassing? The Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace was so angry that his face alternated between red and green. Mu Changhong said coldly, the sects of our prefecture challenged the Extreme Coldness Palace in a weak position. If you can't defeat them, you can only blame yourselves for being too weak. Sending 8 sect leaders together is just bullying us. Now, you've even sent half-step wusheng to kill us. You've gone too far. In the dark, the corners of the mouths of the Masters of the Heavenly Mandate Royal City and the Certification Hall twitched. If it was just a challenge, it wouldn't be a big deal. It would just be embarrassing if he couldn't win. However, that brat had almost destroyed the entire Extreme Coldness Palace. Since he was a half-step wusheng, there was no way he could tolerate it. City Lord Mu. Aren't you being too direct in protecting him? This was good too. After all, he was the City Lord of the Royal City of Southwest Yangzhou. It was more appropriate for him to come forward and protect them than for a neutral organization like theirs. Someone asked, if Mu Changhong hadn't come out of seclusion at this time, wouldn't the sect of all times be doomed? It didn't exist. The cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy and the Certification Center had already arrived in advance. However, just like in Northeast Luzhou, they were forcefully stopped by other factors before they could appear. The Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace said in a low voice, City Lord Mu, are you clearly trying to protect the sect of all times? Nonsense. Mu Changhong said, if I don't protect the forces of Southwest Yangzhou, who will? Jun Changshao, who was standing below, heard this, and his impression of this City Lord of the Royal City, whom he had never met before, skyrocketed. However, how could he trouble others? Jun Changshao said, City Lord Mu, this is a feud between the sect of all times and the Extreme Coldness Palace. Let's leave it to Jun to handle. Mu Changhong was stunned. Didn't this guy know that the other party was half a step away from Wusheng? Step. Jun Changshao took a step forward and locked his eyes on the Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace. He said, "Today, I will personally meet this half a step away from Wusheng." Elder Wei and Elder Jin were dumbfounded. Was the patriarch crazy? He dared to meet the half a step away from Wusheng. Mu Changhong's mouth twitched, and he transmitted his voice, "Little brat, don't show off. With me here, no one can hurt your sect of all times." Jun Changshao blamed himself and said, "I thought that the strongest of the fourth-class sects would be Wu Huang at the peak, so I brought my disciples to the Extreme Coldness Palace. I didn't expect that there would be a half step away from Wusheng. This is my mistake." The biggest reason he dared to go to Lu province in the northeast was because of his unstoppable blade. However, in front of the half a step away from Wusheng, it couldn't be used at all. This was also something he didn't expect. This is a lesson. It also made me realize that some sects with strong foundations can't be judged just by their level. Jun Changshao kept talking to himself, as if he was summing up his experience or reflecting on himself. Yes. He had been too reckless during this period. He went to someone else's territory to cause trouble, and even eliminated 2 third-class heretical sects branches. Any one of these things was infinitely courting death. The half a step away from Wusheng came to pay the price for his previous courting death. Jun Changshao liked to plan ahead, but in the end, he still made a mistake. The same mistake. He looked at the unconscious little dragon and said, "I won't make the same mistake a second time." Whoosh! As he spoke, he stopped outside the mountain gate and stood in front of the sect protecting formation. He looked up at the Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace and said in a deep voice, "Do you dare to fight with me?" Whoosh whoosh, the aura of a 9th-grade sword martial art erupted. This level of strength would definitely cause a lot of shock in front of a martial king or an ordinary Wu Huang, but the half a step away from Wusheng would definitely not be shocked. The Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace frowned. This kid had such terrifying strength at such a young age. He didn't dare to imagine how powerful he would be when he grew up. If the sect hadn't almost been destroyed, this half a step away from Wusheng wouldn't have personally charged into the sect of all times and intensified the conflict between them. City Lord Mu. The Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace said coldly, "Should this old man accept or not?" Mu Changhong said, "There's something wrong with this kid's head. There's no need to pay attention to him. This city lord will have a good fight with you today. A martial king against a half-saint. Even if one used their feet to think, they still had no chance of winning." City Lord Mu. Jun Changshao said in a firm tone, "Today, I must fight this half a step away from Wusheng." Mu Changhong wanted to kick him. However, he suppressed it and transmitted his voice, "Kid, are you crazy? You dare to challenge the half a step away from Wusheng? Shut up and find a cool place to lie down. Leave the rest to me." City Lord Mu was very supportive. However, Jun Changshao said firmly, "I just took the medicine. I must fight him." Mu Changhong said, "How confident are you?" Asking a martial king how confident he was in defeating a half-saint. Was he infected and had something wrong with his head? 100%. Jun Changshao said. The corner of Mu Changhong's mouth twitched. At this moment, he finally understood why this kid dared to be so arrogant recently. It turned out that he was a lunatic. The Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace thought for a moment and said, "City Lord Mu, since the people of your prefecture are so persistent, this old man can only accept the challenge." Jun Changshao smiled coldly. Then, he opened the system store and clicked on the high-level store. Whoosh, the store opened, and rows of high-level products appeared. 9 Transformation Marrow Cleansing Pill. Dragon Elephant Prajna Palm. Fleeting Dragon Steps. 1000-Year Ice Armor. Sacred Flame Physique. The products he saw for the first time after transmigrating were all in the list. The high-level store's condition was that the sect had to be a 5th-rate sect. This was met. The high-level store's price was 10,000 points. Jun Changshao now had 20,000 points, which was also met. Hard to Keep Blade was his trump card. However, after becoming a fifth-rate sect, the high-level store was Jun Patriarch's real trump card. It could even be described as a trump card warehouse. 20,000 points. He could buy 2 items from the high-level store. Could he defeat the half a step away from Wusheng? Urgent. Waiting online. Chapter 599. When walking by the river, how could one's shoes not get wet? Jun Changshao did not expect that the extreme cold palace had a half-step Wusheng. If not for Mu Changhong's help, the sect and little Long Long would have been in trouble. Even those who were good at scheming would make mistakes, let alone Jun Changshao, who was just an ordinary person who had transmigrated. However, putting aside the fact that the other party had suddenly killed him, Jun Patriarch could actually fight with the half-step Wusheng, because the bigger trump card had already been opened after the sect was promoted to a sect. This was the biggest trump card that Jun Changshao dared to go to Luzhou in the northeast and destroy 2 evil sect branches. To be honest, he did not think so at first. The 20,000 contribution points were used to develop the sect. Now that the half-step Wusheng had come and almost caused the sect to suffer, even if he had to spend all of it, he had to beat him up. There were many kinds of items in the high-level store, but for real battles, cultivation techniques, martial arts, and pills were excluded. After all, there was no time for Jun Patriarch to comprehend, so it had to be the kind that could be used immediately. For example, God-modified RPG rocket launcher. The introduction said that this was a portable rocket launcher. After being modified, it was powered by crystal cores and could directly shatter space. God-modified products all had special effects. Once it was activated and fired, it would hit 100% of the time. Even if the opponent traveled through space or escaped to the ends of the earth, it would still be locked on. If it was in the past, Jun Patriarch would definitely buy such an awesome product. However, he continued to flip through it quickly and thought to himself, there are only 20,000 contribution points. If I want to use them, I have to use them on the blade. Next, Jun Changshao saw a product called God-modified mechanical wings. Wearing this item would allow the martial artist to have a pair of wings, ignoring the restrictions of heaven and earth, and fly freely. Moreover, the martial artist could enter multiple combat positions. It's a bit like Iron Man's armor. Jun Changshao muttered. No. It was too high-tech. It would be inappropriate to take it out. Jun Patriarch prayed that there would be good items in the beginner and intermediate shops. However, the items in the advanced shops made him think, which one would be better to buy? The main problem was that there was no indication of fighting prowess in the description of the item. As such, Zhang Xian was unsure whether he would be able to defeat half-step Wusheng if he bought it. He continued to filter. Jun Patriarch. The Extreme Coldness Palace's Grand Elder said in a deep voice, this old man has already accepted the challenge. Why aren't you coming out to fight? Don't worry. Jun Changshao said, I'll give you some time to enjoy life, because you won't have the chance to do so soon. Arrogant. The Supreme Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace said coldly. If it weren't for City Lord Mu standing outside the array formation, he would have already broken the sect-protecting Grand Array. To be honest, only this kind of half-step saint could shake the sect-protecting Grand Array. If it were Wu Huang, even if he was at his peak, he wouldn't be able to do so. Because the defensive strength of the intermediate sect-protecting Grand Array could withstand the attacks of King Wu and Wu Huang. In Jun Changshao's view, the Demon's Sect and the God-Slaying Hall were just 2 branches that had been destroyed. Even if they really wanted to take revenge, they wouldn't send a half-step saint. He guessed right. The angriest patriarch of the Demon Sect only sent 2 peak Wu Huang. Their purpose wasn't to destroy the sect of all times, but to ask for the 100,000 spirit stones. The Supreme Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace broke through half-step Wusheng and came here. This was really the biggest variable. It was also something that Jun Changshao didn't expect even in his dreams. Otherwise, even if the four peak Wu Huang of the two evil sects came here and caused trouble for the sect, they wouldn't be completely defenseless like just now. Jun Changshao continued to browse and locked his eyes on the item called Talisman of Heaven and Earth. He clicked on the details. Item, Talisman of Heaven and Earth. Introduction, a talisman created by the Tao ancestor. It has the power to connect the heavens and the earth and reverse the universe. Effect, after use, it can instantly stimulate the limits of the human body, causing a huge increase in cultivation. Advantage, according to the user's potential, it can maximize the stimulation of one's cultivation, at least by a large realm. Disadvantage, lasts for 60 minutes. After the effect ends, the user will be like a weak scholar who can't even truss a chicken for a year. Price, 10,000 contribution points. Stimulate a large realm. Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up. I'm currently a 9th grade sword and martial king. After using it, I can reach the 9th grade sword and martial emperor. That's right. The system said. Jun Changxiao said, at the moment, this item is the most reliable item. It shouldn't be a problem to beat this guy. The half-step saint was only slightly stronger than peak Wu Huang, but a 9th grade sword and martial emperor was definitely not ordinary. Not to mention. And this was only the lowest stimulation. If he reached the peak, or the level of a half-step sword and martial saint, he would definitely be able to beat him until he pissed his pants. The system said, don't forget, there's a year-long side effect. If we defeat this half-step Wusheng, our sect of all times will definitely shock the entire Starfall continent. Using a year's time to exchange for this doesn't seem like a loss. Jun Changxiao thought to himself. Although he said that, he still continued to look at the other items. There were all sorts of martial arts techniques, cultivation methods, and pill recipes in the high-level shop, but there weren't many that could be used immediately. Therefore, Jun Changxiao could only consider buying talismans, rocket launchers, and mechanical armament wings. Even if the first two items had the possibility of defeating half-step Wusheng, it would still give the impression that they were relying on external items. If he used talismans, others wouldn't be able to tell and would only think that he was strong. It was decided. Ding! Host has spent 10,000 contribution points. You have obtained Talisman of Heaven and Earth X1. It has been transferred into the spatial ring. Ding! Sect contribution points, 100,002,0000. After buying the Talisman of Heaven and Earth, Jun Changxiao said proudly, this world thinks that our sect of all times is just a rising force. They don't know that our heritage is from the ancient times, from the great sage, Heaven's equal. Swoosh! He raised his hand, his fingers forming a hook, and pressed against his temple. His clothes fluttered without any wind, and said, today, I will let the world know what it means to inherit the will of the sect of all times. Ancestors of the sect of all times, please bestow your power to me, to punish today's invaders. The system, could he not brag? Could he not make the sect seem like it really came from the ancient times? He couldn't. He had to brag. He had to raise his own status. Otherwise, how could he be worthy of the 10,000 contribution points that died? Snap! The Talisman of Heaven and Earth in the spatial ring was crushed. Whoosh whoosh, a violent aura instantly burst out from Jun Changxiao's body, forming a power that rippled through the entire Iron Bone Mountain. Feeling that terrifying power, Mu Changhong said in shock, Wusheng. That's right. After Jun Changxiao crushed the talisman, all the muscles, meridians, spirit cores, and even every inch of hair in his body were completely stimulated, and his cultivation realm broke through to Wusheng in an instant. Not half a step. It was the real Wusheng. That terrifying power spread out, and the space trembled violently, as if it could collapse at any time. The sect protecting formation and the various formations at the foot of the mountain all stopped operating under the violent interference of the space, and lost their function. Stomp! Jun Changxiao took a step forward, and his entire body was enveloped by a terrifying power. Hiss hiss hiss, his entire body erupted with light similar to electric arcs, and if his hair turned golden and stood up, it would be super. He raised his head and said in a low voice, you dare to come to the sect of all times and behave so atrociously? You must be tired of living. The extreme coldness palace Grand Elder's expression changed drastically. Under the influence of that terrifying holy power, his mind could not remain calm, and his body instantly lost balance and fell from the sky. Buzz! Suddenly, the space rippled. Jun Changshao appeared out of thin air in front of the Grand Elder's falling trajectory and blasted toward him with the power to shake the space. Boom! The space caved in and collapsed, forming a dense spider web. Boom! 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 The extreme coldness palace Grand Elder flew past like a cannonball, smashing through layers of mountains before finally landing on a grassland hundreds of miles away. The huge impact directly shook the ground until it caved in more than 100 feet, as if it was caused by a small meteorite. Whoosh! Jun Changshao appeared out of thin air above the deep crater and raised his hands, and a gush of energy shot out like a cannonball. Boom! 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 The explosion of energy caused the entire Azure Sun County to tremble. Chapter 600. Buzz! Buzz! Within the borders of Qingyang County, the ground shook regularly, and many warriors were shocked. This kind of huge movement was like a terrible earthquake, and there was also a sense that the end of the world was coming. The corner of Mu Changhong's mouth twitched violently. How did this little guy suddenly have such terrifying strength? Wait! Did he just say that it was the will of the inheritance of the sect of all times? Could it be that this was some kind of powerful special magical power that could instantly increase one's cultivation? Mu Changhong had just come out of seclusion, and he didn't know much about the sect of all times. The warriors of the Heavenly Mandate Academy and the Certification Hall who were hiding in the dark instantly remembered the rumors. What rumors? When the numerous sects were recruiting, Jun Changshao once said that the Iron Bone came from the Iron Bone Mountain of Aolai country, and that the first leader was the great sage equaling heaven. At first, many people didn't take it seriously. Now that he suddenly borrowed the power of his ancestors and had such terrifying strength, could it be true? No one would believe a lie once, but someone would believe it if he said it repeatedly. Moreover, he suddenly went berserk with a powerful cultivation, and he brutally beat up a half-step Wusheng. They had to believe it even if they didn't. Yi Xingqian, who was in the sect, witnessed how the patriarch bullied the supreme elder of the extreme coldness palace. He was even more convinced that the sect originated from the upper realm. He Wudi was also very excited. This kind of sudden increase in power to the saint level must be some kind of powerful magical power left by the Seven Profound Lord. He came to the Falling Star continent and joined the sect of all times as a disciple. This was definitely a great opportunity bestowed by God. Sigh. The two of them were hopeless. Boom. The energy blasted into the deep pit again, and dust filled the air, covering the sky and the sun. Gradually, everything was clear. The Supreme Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace sunk into the ground, and his whole body was blasted into a bloody mess. He was almost unconscious. Tragic. Extremely tragic. The Supreme Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace was still half a step away from the real Wusheng. In front of Jun Changshao, who had greatly stimulated his cultivation, he was really vulnerable. Speaking of which, at the very least, he would be promoted by one major realm. Jun Patriarch went straight from the 9th grade double kings of sword and martial arts to Wusheng, which showed that his body had great potential. No matter how big it was, it couldn't escape the side effects of weakness. So, don't look at how overbearing it was now. Once the effects were over, it would definitely be over. Shwa! Jun Changshao passed through space and landed in the deep pit. Trash! The Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace was still conscious, but he didn't have the strength to speak. He could only lie there weakly while enduring the intense pain. Jun Changshao's spirit energy erupted and wrapped around him, pulling him in front of him. He said, "My sect's disciple is the Ice Emperor's successor. Aren't you stupid to come here so recklessly? The successor of the Ice Empress? A hint of confusion appeared in the extreme coldness palace's Grand Elder's weak gaze. From the look in his eyes, Jun Changshao knew that he definitely didn't know that Lu Qianqian had inherited the Ice Emperor's legacy. That's right. The Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace didn't know. When he found out that his sect had suffered heavy casualties and was almost exterminated, he rushed over in a fit of rage. He didn't know anything else. What about the Extreme Coldness Palace Master? Although he was at the scene, in order to protect the main hall, he was covered in injuries from the explosion of the thunder array. In the end, he collapsed on the ground powerlessly. He didn't even know that Lu Qianqian showed the Ice Emperor's token later on. The most tragic thing was, none of the 8 Patriarch told him about it. When the Extreme Coldness Palace Master recovered slightly, he headed to the Endless Ice Sea without hesitation and complained to the Grand Elder. Northeast Lu Province. The 8 Patriarch of the fourth-rate sects sat together and drank tea. The Xianling Sect Patriarch said, "I didn't expect the Extreme Coldness Palace's Grand Elder to have broken through and become a half-step Wusheng. He killed his way to southwest Yang Province without knowing. He can definitely deal a heavy blow to the sect of all times and let the world know that those who bully Lu Province must pay the price. Luckily, we didn't tell him about the Ice Emperor's successor. Otherwise, even if he broke through and became a half-step Wusheng, the Extreme Coldness Palace's Grand Elder might not have the guts to find trouble. He will know about it sooner or later. However, what's done can't be undone. We just have to wait and watch the show. Come, have some tea." If the Extreme Coldness Palace's Grand Elder in southwest Yang Province heard what they said, he would definitely vomit blood. "You bastards are using my Extreme Coldness Palace as a tool. Old fellow." Jun Changshao grabbed the Extreme Coldness Palace's Grand Elder and said coldly, "Since you're here, don't go back. The sect of all times happens to lack servants. Stay here and clean the courtyard." Mu Changhong's mouth twitched. Half-step Wusheng cleaning the courtyard of the sect of all times. This was definitely an insult to the Grand Elder's dignity. Jun Patriarch was already merciful for not killing him on the spot when he almost severely injured Little Long Long and destroyed the sect's protective array. A half-step Wusheng was not an ordinary person. Since he wanted to keep him alive, he definitely had to have absolute control over him. Bam! Bam! Jun Changxiao's fingers were like lightning as he tapped the Extreme Coldness Palace's Grand Elder's body, instantly sealing all 12 of his meridians. "Patriarch," Elder Wei said telepathically, "it's not safe enough. You can forcefully extract this person's soul origin." "Can I?" Jun Changxiao asked. Elder Wei said, "At Wusheng's level, spiritual thoughts can penetrate a martial artist's body and forcefully extract their soul." "Then I'll give it a try." Jun Changxiao's spiritual thoughts moved, and his soul power instantly enveloped the Extreme Coldness Palace's Grand Elder. Then, it directly penetrated and locked onto a wisp of his soul origin. This method of forceful penetration was extremely domineering. The Extreme Coldness Palace's Grand Elder's face was abnormally ferocious, and he was drenched in sweat. Especially when he felt his soul origin flying out of his body uncontrollably, he was horrified. No! No! Boom! His spiritual sea seemed to explode in an instant. The powerful impact was unbearable for him, and he immediately fainted. That wisp of soul origin was forcefully extracted and held in Jun Patriarch's hand. It really worked. Elder Wei must be an expert to be able to come up with this idea. Mu Changhong was shocked. Forcefully extracting the soul origin. Is this why Wusheng is so terrifying? Swoosh! Jun Changshao waved his hand and threw the unconscious Extreme Coldness Palace's Grand Elder onto the sect's training field. "Lock him up." "Yes." Su Xiaoma and Li Fei quickly rushed over and dragged him away. He came with great momentum, but now he was reduced to such a state. This half-step Wusheng was truly lamentable. Logically speaking, things should have ended here. However, Jun Changshao looked at the distant sky and sneered. "There are still 4 fleas that need to be dealt with by me. Swoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared into thin air. Mu Changhong and the two experts of the organization were instantly envious. The strength of a martial saint was not only reflected in their strength, but also in their absolute control of space. For example, Jun Changxiao's ability to teleport. Wait! Where did Jun Patriarch go? Mu Changhong released his spiritual sense, which extended thousands of miles, and locked onto the four menacing peak stage Wu Huang. He shook his head and said, if they run away now, they should still be able to. Before he could finish his words, the space suddenly shook. Jun Changxiao walked out of the void and said lightly, are the four of you from the Tang of the East going to the West to seek scriptures? Chapter 601. Suddenly, someone appeared out of thin air and blocked their path, shocking the four peak Wu Huang. This aura! They immediately realized that this person was definitely an expert. Who are you? One of the Wu Huang from the Devil Fiend's sect hurriedly cupped his hands and said. Jun Changxiao. Jun Changxiao. Sect of all times patriarch. The four Wu Huang's eyes were filled with astonishment. When they came, they already knew that this guy was a sword and martial king. How could he have the ability to fly? One of the Wu Huang questioned, are you really Jun Changxiao? Whoosh! Jun Patriarch slapped over. It seemed very soft, but when it hit the left side of the other party's face, it immediately shot towards the ground. Boom! The ground caved in, forming a huge pit. Not only was that Wu Huang's entire face crooked, his entire body completely fell apart, and he fainted on the spot. Hiss! The other three people were so shocked that their eyeballs almost popped out. Casually killing a peak Wu Huang, could this guy be a half-step Wu Sheng? No! Just now, the space shook so violently, and he walked out from it. This kind of strong spatial control, didn't it mean that this person was Wu Sheng? The three of them exclaimed in unison. Bang! 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 Jun Changxiao didn't waste any time and slapped each of them, causing them to fall to the ground like three cannonballs. When they came, the four of them were still discussing how to intimidate the sect of all times and how to get back the spirit stones. Especially the two peak Wu Huang from the God-slaying hall, who met the experts of the Devil Fiend sect on the way, expressed their willingness to help and only asked for 1,000 or 800 spirit stones. In the end, before they even reached the Iron Bone Mountain, they were already dead. Compared to the Supreme Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace, at least they still caused trouble for the sect of all times. Plop! Plop! The four peak Wu Huang fell onto the martial arts practice field one after another. Their sole source was controlled by Jun Changxiao. Including the Palace Lord of the Extreme Coldness Palace just now, the five of them were just enough to form the strongest heavenly group and head to the Western Paradise to retrieve the scriptures. Patriarch. Elder Wei transmitted his voice, leave them to clean the courtyard. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, Peak Wu Huang should be very precious. Lock him up and let the two heretical sects ransom him. By controlling the Extreme Coldness Palace's Grand Elder, the Extreme Coldness Palace would no longer be a threat. Third-rate heretical sects were different. Killing the four-peak stage Wu Huang would only make the other party and the school fight to the death. If he forced him to stay and take him as a servant, he would definitely not give up. The best way was to squeeze every bit of value out of them to bring more resources to the sect. His little abacus was loud and clear. Poor two heretical sections. They thought that sending four peak stage Wu Huang would be enough to intimidate the sect of all times, but in the end, they became Su Jinjiang's Christmas present. Elder Wei said, Peak Wu Huang is one of the strongest. The Demon Fiend's sect and the God-slaying palace should be happy to ransom him. Lock him up. Jun Changxiao said loudly. Shua! Shua! Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and the others ran over again and took the four unconscious people away. First, they sent the half-step Wuxing to jail, then the four-peak stage Wu Huang to jail, giving them a sense of accomplishment. That's right. Normal martial cultivators could only look up to such a high and mighty expert. How could they personally send him to jail? Shwa! Mu Changhong landed on the martial arts field. Note, the sect protecting formation is currently paralyzed. City Lord Mu. Jun Changshao cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your help." Jun is very grateful. He was very sincere. The Supreme Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace suddenly came and didn't give him time to buy items in the store. If it wasn't for Mu Changhong's help, the sect of all times would have been in trouble. A miscalculation, a miscalculation. This kind of situation must never happen again. Mu Changhong said, "Actually, if I didn't do anything, the sect of all times wouldn't have been in trouble." He wasn't talking about Jun Changxiao's cultivation exploding. He was talking about the little dragon rushing out. In its state at that time, Mu Changhong speculated that it must have offset part of the power of the palm print, and then the sect protecting formation resisted it. The consequences were serious injuries or direct death. Fortunately, such a vicious plot didn't happen. Jun Changxiao said again, "Thank you for the secret help of the Heavenly Mandate Academy and the Certification Center." A cultivator from the Heavenly Mandate Academy flew out and said awkwardly, "The sect of all times was able to resolve this crisis because of City Lord Mu and Jun Patriarch. We didn't help. It's a shame." As long as people came, it was their intention. Jun Changxiao didn't care whether they helped or not. He cupped his hands and said, "Go back and tell Dean Situ and Master Yi that Jun will remember this kindness. If the sect of all times needs help in the future, I will go through fire and water without hesitation." A decent man. Whoosh! Picking up the unconscious little dragon, Jun Changxiao said, "My contract beast's injuries are a little serious. Forgive me for not seeing you off." The corner of Mu Changhong's mouth twitched slightly. He wanted to stay and take a good look at this son-in-law of his. So be it. There would be plenty of opportunities in the future. Mu Changhong cupped his hands and said, "Jun Patriarch, I'll take my leave first." He and the cultivators from the two major organizations hiding in the dark flew away. The sect of all times, which was originally shrouded in dark clouds and had a solemn atmosphere, returned to its calm and peaceful state. The news of the half-step Wusheng and the two heretical cultivators sweeping southwest Yangzhou on the same day, causing an unimaginable sensation. The focus of everyone's discussion wasn't that the Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace was beaten black and blue, but that Jun Changxiao was so strong. "I heard that Jun Patriarch used a divine ability to summon the souls of the ancestors of the sect of all times, and his strength suddenly skyrocketed to that of Wusheng. My God, that's too awesome." When the 100 sects were recruiting, Jun Patriarch once said that the sect of all times had an inheritance from the ancient times. Now it seems that it was true. No wonder it seemed to have suddenly risen. It's a sect with an inheritance from the ancient times. The awesomeness that Jun Changxiao had boasted was now blooming everywhere. There was also a benefit to this. At least many people could reluctantly accept why the sect of all times had risen in such a short time. When this news spread to the other provinces and the various large sects learned of it, they would definitely seriously discuss it. Did this sect really have an inheritance from the ancient times? The concept of the ancient times was very vague. It was usually defined as 10,000 years ago. If the sect of all times had an inheritance from the ancient times, then that meant that it had at least 10,000 years of history. In that era, powerhouses came forth in large numbers and masters were as common as clouds. It was not something that the modern era could compare with. Thus, from an unknown sect to a sect that resounded like thunder, it seemed reasonable to explain it as an ancient sect. As for the word ancient, it didn't seem so arrogant. After all, this sect had existed for 10,000 years. Take a look. When Jun Patriarch boasted about his awesomeness, others were helping to fill in the gaps in their imaginations, making the lies seem more and more real. As for City Lord Mu, the difference was like heaven and earth. Master. Within the study, Xiao Maxian was holding a cup of tea. I just brewed it. Jun Changxiao received the cup, his hands violently shaking. He could hear the teacup and lid colliding with each other, emitting crackling sounds. Just now he had been so arrogant that he had wildly abused a half-step saint, but now he couldn't even lift a teacup. This was the side effect of the universe symbol. At this time, June Patriarch was like a weak scholar without the strength to truss up a chicken. However, he wasn't depressed. To be able to rely on the universe symbol to directly ascend to the level of Wusheng and personally abuse the extreme cold palace's highest elder was worth it. Moreover, at the king level, he could experience the saint level first and gain some benefits. Master. Xiao Moxian stared at the little dragon lying in its nest. She fiercely said, "When this little clown wakes up, you must teach it a lesson." It had helped him resist that palm with good intentions, but the result was that it had been sent flying away. This was simply unreasonable. Jun Changshao said, "Girl, it only did this because it was worried that you would be injured." Although its methods were a bit extreme, its intentions were good. Humph. Xiao Moxian curled her lips. It must have taken this opportunity to bully me. Chapter 602. Little Long Long was fine, but because of the outburst, it fell into a temporary coma. It was fine. June Patriarch had something to do. The spirit energy in the two spirit cores was sealed by some kind of special power, turning it into a cripple. This was the price he had to pay to break the talisman of heaven and earth and obtain the explosive cultivation. Jun Changshao said, "The side effects last for a year, how am I going to live?" The system said, "The host's realm is only suppressed, his senses are not affected, you can continue to cultivate all right." Jun Chang smiled and said, "Cultivate diligently." Looking at the unconscious little Long Long, he said, "The form it took before should be a five-clawed dragon. Could this be little Long Long's true form?" He had always thought of this contract beast as a fire dragon. Even if there were differences, he would attribute it to mutation. Now it seems that things weren't that simple. The system said, "The host didn't bring back a fire dragon egg, but a dragon egg. No wonder little Long Long's strength increases so much every time it evolves," Jun Changshao muttered. The system said, "It's also related to mutation, so, when I incubated it, throwing in spirit cores regardless of the cost was worth it." Phew. Lying on the bed, he chose to sleep. He only woke up late the next day. Although his cultivation was still suppressed, he was at least a bit more spirited than yesterday. From the inner courtyard to the outer courtyard, many disciples could see that Patriarch no longer had the imposing aura he had yesterday, becoming very ordinary. Without his cultivation, Jun Changshao was no different from an ordinary person. Patriarch arriving at the main hall, as soon as he sat down, Li Qingyang worriedly asked, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Jun Chang smiled and said, "Pass down the order. Have the disciples cultivate diligently." Li Qingyang said. Jun Changshao then called Li Luoqiu over, telling her to pay more attention to purchasing and gathering information, then went to the spirit gathering formation. Body metamorphose scripture activated, the spirit energy of heaven and earth howled. He could cultivate, but his spirit core was sealed by some kind of power, and could only be entered but not exited. Right now, Jun Changshao was forcibly suppressed into an ordinary person. His 9th grade sword and martial king cultivation base could not be unleashed at all. Well done. He couldn't afford to fool around anymore. He could only focus on his cultivation. A few days later, Jun Changshao was cultivating in the spirit gathering array when he heard a notification. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden mission, world famous. You have gained 5,000 contribution points. Ding! Contribution points, 14990200000. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden mission, world famous. The hidden rewards are Experience Talisman X1, Supreme Grade Aptitude Modification Liquid X5, and the right to purchase the Spacetime Secret Realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden mission and gaining the title of Illustrious Fame. During this period of time, as the news of the Sect of All Times continued to spread, it could be said that the Sect of All Times was world-renowned in the Starfall continent. Recently, the chances of getting experience talismans from completing missions have been very high, Jun Changshao said. In the past, when he completed hidden or side quests, he would usually be rewarded with aptitude fluid. The system said, it's because of the upgrade to version 2.0, alright. Jun Changshao wasn't in a hurry to crush the experience talisman. Instead, he opened the Purchased Items tab and clicked on the Spacetime Secret Realm. Item, Spacetime Secret Realm. Introduction, a special secret realm formed by the convergence of space in the vast universe. Effect, time accelerates inside, allowing one to cultivate faster than ordinary people. Advantage, people from the sect can enter at will, without any restrictions on their level. Disadvantage, under the time acceleration, it will consume the same amount of lifespan. Grade, Beginner Secret Realm. Price, 10,000 contribution points. Time acceleration. Jun Changshao muttered, it doesn't seem simple. The system said, this is an item that can only be refreshed in a high-grade store. I recommend the host to buy it for 10 stars. It's a little expensive. Jun Changshao said with a frown. The system said, under the time acceleration, the disciples' cultivation will be faster. Even if it's a little expensive, it's worth it. I'll think about it. Jun Changshao didn't buy the Spacetime Secret Realm immediately. Anyway, it was in the Purchased Items tab, so he wasn't afraid of refreshing it. Paw! He crushed the Experience Talisman. Jun Patriarch successfully stepped into the peak of the King Realm. However, because the Spirit Core was sealed, there was no psionic energy at all. It could be said that it was very ordinary. And the most tragic thing was, after breaking through, because he couldn't unleash his strength, Jun Patriarch couldn't test how strong he was now. This was definitely a kind of torture. If he had known earlier, he would have bought the mechanical armed wings. Just as Jun Patriarch was regretting, a crisp system prompt sounded in his ears. Ding! Host has broken through to the peak of the Martial King, meeting the requirements. Epic quest begins. Ding! Patriarch has broken through to the peak of the Sword King, meeting the requirements. Epic quest begins. Jun Changshao was a little confused. He hurriedly opened the system panel and saw that there were actually 2 epic quests. Damn! The Sword and Martial King had reached the peak level, and there were 2 yokes. In the past, when one reached the peak of each level, the epic quest would be activated. Jun Changshao was one of the 2 kings of sword and martial arts. Both of them had reached the pinnacle of their respective realms. However, he had not expected that he would be given 2 epic quests. He clicked on the first quest, Epic Quest 5. Quest details: in half a year, Sect disciples have broken through to the peak of Wuzong, 19500. Martial King, 350. Elders have broken through to the peak of the Martial King, 0, quest failure, not reached within the time limit. Quest reward: 50 Martial Kings. 1 peak Martial King. Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. This epic quest is a bit difficult. Breaking through to the peak of Wuzong wasn't too difficult. After all, with the help of various resources, the disciples should be able to reach it easily. However, 50 Martial Kings was a bit difficult. Li Qingyang and the others had broken through to the Martial King level, but there were only 20 inner disciples. Who would fill the remaining 30 spots? It seemed impossible for the elders to reach the peak of the Martial King level. After all, the Ning brothers were only at the 5th rank. They had reached the peak level in 6 months, so they had to ensure that they broke through 1 level in a month. Wait! Jun Changshao suddenly thought of something and said, the herbs planted by Elder Wei should mature in half a year. After refining the Martial King pills, wouldn't it be easy for them to reach the standard? In this way, he only needed to let more disciples break through to the peak of Wuzong, and then use the pills to directly soar. If you want them to break through faster, the host still has to buy the Spacetime Secret Realm. The system said. That's right. Jun Changshao also thought so. According to the current resources, they might not be able to reach the requirement in half a year. If they had some higher-level cultivation facilities, they would definitely have a higher chance of success. Not to mention, the quest conditions of the epic quest definitely had a hidden quota. If more disciples could reach the requirement, they would definitely exceed the quota and obtain more generous rewards. The space-time secret realm must be bought. Jun Changshao returned to the attribute panel and clicked on the second epic quest. Epic Quest 6. Quest details: the 3-year promise is coming. At that time, the host will bring the disciples to the Lily Holy Sect to challenge them and help the disciple Xiao Ziji regain the dignity that he had lost. Quest failure: did not arrive on the agreed date, or lost to the Lily Holy Sect. Quest reward? Jun Changshao said in shock, this epic quest is actually related to the 3-year promise. P.S. I'm sorry, something happened and I'm even slower today. There will be more later. Chapter 603. Strictly speaking, the 3-year agreement between Xiao Ziji and Murong Xian was brought about by Jun Changshao. Now that it had become an epic mission, he had asked for it. The mission only says to challenge Xiao Ziji and take back his lost dignity. There are no details at all. How do I complete it? Is it the same as challenging the Holy Springs Sect, where the disciples fight and win enough battles? The Lily Holy Sect is a second-rate sect. Their disciples must be strong. This battle will be very difficult. What made Jun Changshao happy was that he had been weak for a year, and the second epic mission was to fulfill the 3-year agreement. There was still more than a year left. This gap was very subtle. Comfortable. Jun Patriarch stretched. Breaking through to the peak level would be blocked by the epic mission. So, he did not need to cultivate at all. He only needed to think about how to complete the mission. Whoosh! He opened the shopping list and selected the Space-Time Secret Realm. Ding! Host has spent 1,000 contribution points. Space-Time Secret Realm X1. It has been transferred to the Spatial Ring. Ding! Sect contribution points, 499020000. The Space-Time Secret Realm was not a physical entity, but a vortex similar to a teleportation array. It stood in the spatial ring just like that. How do I use this thing? Jun Changshao asked. The system said, just summon it and place it in a fixed location. Understood. Jun Changshao came to the back of the mountain and stopped near the training tower. He immediately summoned the Space-Time Secret Realm. Buzz! The surrounding space suddenly became distorted. An oval vortex gradually formed, shining with a special light and filled with a heavy aura. Patriarch. Su Xiaoma came over and asked in surprise, what is this? Li Qingyang and the others also came over. Looking at the shining vortex, they were confused and disgusted. Could this be? Wudi was shocked. A secret realm in the universe. Above the mortal world was the endless universe. In the laws of heaven and earth, some strange vortexes gradually formed. There was another world inside, so it was called a secret realm. It was actually similar to the forbidden area of the falling star continent. Mystic realms were a system of their own. Not only were they special, but they were also dangerous. Therefore, very few people dared to set foot in them. Wudi's cultivation was powerful in the past, and he had ventured into the secret realm alone or with others. The process could be said to be a narrow escape, but he had obtained a lot of natural treasures. This is a space-time pocket. Jun Changshao said, after entering, time can be sped up, which can help improve one's cultivation. My God, so magical! Everyone exclaimed. Wudi was also deeply shocked. A secret realm with time acceleration in his own universe would definitely make all the experts go crazy. Could it have been left behind by Senior 7 Profound Sage? To be able to move a secret realm directly to the lower realm, his cultivation is indeed extraordinary. Wudi's eyes were filled with awe. Patriarch. He cautiously asked, there's no danger inside, right? Won't you know if it's dangerous once you go in? Jun Changshao said. Although Woody was afraid, seeing everyone staring at him, he felt like he was being held up. He could only brace himself and say, "Then I'll go in and check it out." Swish! He resolutely stepped forward. However, just as he was about to enter, Yixingchen was one step ahead of him and entered the vortex. "This guy," Woody secretly said, "the ignorant are really fearless." Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others followed closely behind and entered the space-time pocket. "Come, let's go in and take a look." Jun Changshao also went in. Just how magical was this time acceleration? Buzz! Buzz! In a seemingly endless space, Yixingchen, Woody, and the others entered one after another. The space inside was distorted. Other than being a little cold, there was no danger. Patriarch. Su Xiaoma scratched his head and said, "There doesn't seem to be anything special." "There is." Woody said solemnly, "The flow of time here has been accelerated. We are inside, so we can't feel it." Yixingchen also noticed it. However, as for how much time had been accelerated, he did not know. "Look!" Li Fei pointed above and said, "Words have appeared." Jun Changshao and the other disciples looked up in unison and saw words gradually appear in the folded space. Space-time pocket, time acceleration 50 times, 50 times. Woody's eyes almost popped out. Jun Changshao touched his nose and said with a smile, "One day of cultivation here is 50 days in the outside world?" "That's right," Woody said. He found it difficult to calm down. To a martial cultivator, a time acceleration of 50 times was truly terrifying. Chang Shao shook his head and said, "It's a little too little." "A little, too little." The corner of Woody's mouth twitched violently. "Lord Patriarch, if this space-time pocket was discovered in the upper realm, the major forces would definitely seize it at all costs and even set off a terrifying storm of blood." High-level martial cultivators did not rely on natural treasures because they could not be obtained every day. Therefore, using time to cultivate was the only way to become stronger. The space-time pocket had 50 times time acceleration, so 1 year of cultivation was equivalent to 50 years of cultivation. This was absolutely terrifying. Wait! There were no heaven and earth attributes in the pocket. After realizing this, Woody's heart sank. Even with 50 times time acceleration and no heaven and earth attributes for cultivation, it was useless. "Patriarch," he said dejectedly, "there are no heaven and earth attributes here, so we can't use it for cultivation." Jun Changshao said, "Can't we just draw on the outside world's attributes?" Woody was speechless. The pocket is a system of its own. The outside world's attributes might not be able to be integrated. "Let's try." Jun Changshao left the space-time pocket. A few minutes inside was equivalent to a few seconds in the outside world. The mid-grade spirit gathering array's heaven and earth attributes were drawn from the place of spiritual energy recovery. Like a water pipe, Jun Patriarch pulled out a branch and led it to the space-time pocket. Huff huff, majestic heaven and earth spiritual energy poured in through the vortex. Gradually, the inner space had heaven and earth attributes dozens of times stronger than other places. This, Woody was dumbfounded. The pocket was an independent space. How could the outside world's attributes enter? The pocket he knew was a pocket in the universe. The space-time pocket came from the mall, so it naturally had its own uniqueness. Oh, 98K. Jun Changshao clapped his hands and said, "The spiritual energy problem is solved. You can cultivate here if you have nothing to do in the future." "Patriarch." Su Xiaoma smiled and said, "Can you set up a spirit gathering array here?" Smack! Jun Changshao hit his head and said, "You're really smart. I didn't train you for nothing." Su Xiaoma's words woke him up. He hurriedly called Jin Dejuan and said, "Set up a spirit gathering array here." "Ha!" Jin Dejuan was stunned and said, "Patriarch, I don't know how to." "Aren't you a formation king?" "I am a formation king, but I've never seen this kind of array and protective array set up by Patriarch." Elder Zhen had studied the mid-grade spirit gathering array in addition to teaching the disciples. Although he could see the internal lines, it was still amazing. Too awesome. Too perfect. Jun Changshao touched his chin and said, I have a secret book called the Chimen 32 Formations here. You can study it first. Ha! Jin Dejuan took it and subconsciously opened it. Then, his expression changed again and again. As an array expert, he didn't need to analyze too much. Just from the various array lines and the arrangement of the array, he could tell that the Chimen 32 Formations was a masterpiece of array. Chapter 604. During the trip to northeast Luzhou, the kind of madness that Zhen Dejuan showed was very much to Jun Patriarch's liking. They were birds of a feather. Moreover, appointing him as the elder of the array hall, he had long planned to hand over the Chimen 32 Formations. Therefore, it was a good opportunity to set up a spirit-gathering array in the secret realm. To put it bluntly, it was nothing more than paving the way for the future. After getting the copy of the Chimen 32 Formations, Zhen Dejuan began to study it. He didn't even eat the food cooked by Lu Wancher for the whole day. This was absolutely intoxicating. He didn't disappoint Jun Changshao. In just a few days, he had comprehended the middle-grade spirit-gathering array. Shwa! Shwa! In the space-time secret realm, the array flags flew out and were inserted in fixed positions. After the array was set up, it began to outline the line. Buzz, everything was done. A stream of light soared into the sky, and the middle-grade spirit-gathering array was condensed. Amazing, amazing! Jun Patriarch, who was hiding in the distance, applauded. Why did he keep a distance? He was worried that Elder Zhen's first arrangement would not succeed and cause an explosion. In terms of qualifications, the 9th grade array king was not weaker than Jun Changshao, who relied on the aptitude modification liquid. Patriarch Zhen Dejuan said, I will continue to comprehend the Chimen 32 Formations. Go, go. Jun Changshao entered the spirit-gathering array and felt the 100 times heaven and earth attributes inside. He murmured, coupled with the 50 times time acceleration here, the cultivation speed will only be more terrifying. Within half a year, let more disciples break through to the peak of Wuzong. That will be easy. 50 times the time, 100 times the spirit force, a year in the outside world, 50 years of cultivation here, that will definitely take off. Moreover, another advantage of the space-time secret realm was that if one was stuck in a certain realm, one could use time to comprehend and break through. This was something that the 100 times spirit-gathering array could not do. But there were also flaws. Under the acceleration of time, one's lifespan was also consumed quickly. For example, if a person cultivated for 50 years, although only 1 year had passed in the outside world, 50 years of lifespan was equivalent to consuming. If a martial cultivator who was nearing the end of his lifespan entered the space-time secret realm and was unable to achieve a breakthrough to the next realm, it would be a quick suicide. The disciples are all very young. As long as they break through a major realm, their lifespan will increase. This shortcoming is not a big problem. Let them cultivate for 100 years in there, and that's only 2 years in the outside world. Even if they don't reach Martial King realm, it's still possible for them to reach Wuhuang realm. Just as Jun Patriarch was beginning to fantasize about a beautiful tomorrow, the system suddenly said, once you enter the space-time realm, you can only cultivate for 3 days according to the outside world. You will be automatically sent out if you are delayed by even 1 second. Jun Changshao said in surprise, why didn't the introduction mention a time limit? Just because he didn't say anything doesn't mean there isn't one, the system said. Fuck. Jun Changshao was on the verge of breaking down. Only cultivating for 3 days? That's too stingy. 3 days was equivalent to 150 days. This was a huge difference from his fantasy of cultivating for hundreds of years. The system said, after all, it's just a beginner-grade secret realm. If the host wants to obtain more time and acceleration effects, you'll have to purchase a higher-grade secret realm. This was really pouring cold water on him. The hot-blooded June patriarch was now cold all over. Don't just stand there. The system said, now that the flow of time is 50 times faster, the host is wasting a few minutes of his life by standing there in a daze. You can either cultivate quickly or leave quickly. Shwa! June patriarch hurriedly left. He was now at the peak level, and his realm was stuck. There was no need for him to cultivate, so why waste his life in there? Sigh. June Changshao comforted himself. 3 days is 3 days. At least it can be accelerated for 5 months every month. In a year, it can be accelerated for several years. Oh right. He slapped his forehead and said, can my side effects be offset in the secret realm? The system was silent for a while, then said, in theory, it can. The disciples of the sect of all times usually came to the back mountain to cultivate in the spirit gathering array. Now, they entered the space-time realm in groups. Because there were only 3 days. Everyone was especially hardworking, cultivating every minute and every second, not daring to slack off. He Wudi, who was already suspected of cheating, coupled with the 50 times time acceleration, he would only be more like a Buddha. In order to offset the side effects, June Changshao also came in. But he did not cultivate. Instead, he used his mind to comprehend the martial arts and formations. This was the benefit of the space-time realm. It was not necessary to use it to improve one's martial arts. It could also be used to comprehend various martial arts. Just as the system said. After 150 days of comprehension in the secret realm, June Changshao and the first batch of disciples were sent out one after another. Many disciples used time, formations, pills, and other things to break through several ranks in 5 months. The speed was obviously much faster than before. June Changshao finally understood why there was a time limit. Such an awesome time acceleration, if it was unlimited, with his own sect's cultivation facilities, the disciples could cultivate in there for 2 years. How terrifying would it be when they came out? It was originally hell mode. If there was no time limit to cultivate without restraint, minutes would become easy mode. Sigh. Why couldn't they be invincible? How could they come? Although it was only 3 days, the disciples had benefited greatly, which made June Changshao very satisfied. Next, he called Jiang Ye and the Ning brothers over, and said, don't teach the disciples for the time being, you must reach the peak of Martial King within half a year. Half a year, peak Martial King. The corner of Jiang Ye's mouth twitched, Patriarch, this is difficult. June Changshao threw over 3 space rings, and said, there are 50,000 natural spirit stones in each ring, do you have the confidence to break through? The most difficult part of the epic quest was for the elders to break through to the peak of Martial King. In order to complete it, they would rather use spirit stones. Moreover, 100,000 of them were snatched from the demon fiend sect, so why didn't they feel the pinch at all? We can break through. Jiang Xia and the Ning brothers said solemnly. Time acceleration, 100 times spiritual energy, and now with 50,000 natural spirit stones, they were absolutely confident. June Changshao originally had a bold idea to move the medicine garden into the time and space secret realm, but the 3-day time limit made him give up on the idea. Patriarch. Li Qingyang came to report, Demon Fiend Sect and God-Killing Hall sent a letter saying that they want to have a good talk. It's only been a few days, and you can't sit still anymore. June Changshao said. The 4 Peak Wu Huang were still imprisoned. Although they had no intention of becoming servants, they were still a great fortune. June Changshao thought for a moment and said, reply to the 2 evil sects, 50,000 natural spirit stones per head, and send it over within half a month, otherwise, just wait to collect the corpse. Only 50,000? Jin Dejuan said, isn't it a little too little? June Changshao shook his head, if we ask for too much, it will only anger the 2 sections. 50,000 should be within their acceptable range. As expected. After the 2 evil sects learned of the conditions, after careful consideration, they gritted their teeth and spent 100,000 natural spirit stones to redeem their 2 Peak Wu Huang. They didn't think of sending experts to ask for them directly. Not to mention that Mu Changhong had already broken through to half-step Wusheng. Even Jun Changshao had some kind of divine ability that could raise his cultivation to Wusheng. Sending people over would be like sending rice to them. At the mountain gate, Jun Patriarch personally sent them off, and said with a smile, "This seat has already given you a customs clearance document, you can continue to go to the west to seek the scriptures." Although the 4 Peak Wu Huang who were released didn't understand, they could only sadly drag their bodies away. "Everyone!" Jun Changshao shouted, "Come and play when you have time." "Patriarch," Li Qingyang said, "you really let them go?" "Of course." Jun Changshao said seriously, "The 2 sects paid the ransom, our sect of all times naturally has to be honest." "Patriarch," Su Xiaoma said in a weak voice, "have the 4's soul origins been returned?" "Pa!" Jun Changshao took out the historical record and smashed it on his head. "You talk too much, get the hell out of here and cultivate." Chapter 605. Since the Demon Fiend sect and the Deicide Temple had sent over 200,000 natural spirit stones, Jun Changshao would naturally let them go. However, he didn't hand over their soul origin and still had control over their lives. Jun Patriarch wanted to keep them for now. They might come in handy in the future. The 4 Wu Huang knew that their soul origin had been taken away, but they wouldn't dare to say it when they returned. After all, their lives were in the hands of others and they could be annihilated at any time. Give all 200,000 spirit stones to the disciples so that they can break through faster. Jun Patriarch wouldn't be stingy since the 5th epic mission had to be completed within half a year. However, with such a large amount of spirit stones distributed to nearly 10,000 disciples, each person only had about 20 spirit stones. If they really relied on spirit stones to forcefully increase their cultivation, it would be very costly. Not to mention a 5th-rate sect, even a 1st-rate or 2nd-rate sect might not be able to do it. Fortunately, Jun Patriarch didn't rely too much on spirit stones. The appearance of the secret realm and the combination of the spirit gathering array were the main ways for the disciples to become stronger. "Babies, break through as much as you want in this half a year." The 4 peak stage Wu Huang had obtained their freedom, but the Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace was in a tragic situation. At this moment, he had already recovered from his injuries and was dragging his slightly aged body to clean up the fallen leaves and dust on the martial arts field. His 12 meridians were sealed and he was like a cripple. His soul origin was controlled and he couldn't control his own life and death. He could only be a servant. A half-step Wusheng had been reduced to such a state. It was really a pity. The disciples who had entered the secret realm of time and space continued to cultivate in the spirit gathering array and the Tower of Experience. They didn't want to waste any time. The disciples who hadn't entered the secret realm entered one after another. Jiangye and the Ning brothers threw away all distracting thoughts and focused on cultivation so that they could break through to the peak of the Martial King realm as soon as possible. The sect style of cultivation was even stronger. Jun Changshao, who was stuck at the epic mission, focused on managing the sect and comprehending martial arts techniques. Outside, the martial artists' discussion about him and the sect of all times hadn't ended, and their prestige was constantly rising. When some of the major sects learned that Jun Changshao could defeat the half-step Wusheng, they were all in awe. However, they were even more curious about whether this sect had been passed down from the ancient times. Many people began to flip through the historical records, but they could not find any records. This caused the sect of all times to be shrouded in a layer of mystery. Even though it was impossible to ascertain whether this sect had been passed down from the ancient era, no one dared to provoke them. After all, the fact that they were able to defeat half-step Wusheng meant that they were definitely powerful. As for the Devil Fiends sect and the God-slaying Hall, they could only swallow their grievances and forcefully turn themselves invisible. No one was more shocked than Lu Zhou in the northeast. The Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace, a powerhouse who was half a step away from Wusheng, had failed in the sect of all times. When the Xianling sect patriarch and the rest heard the news, their first reaction was confusion. They had originally wanted to laugh at the sect of all times, but they had not expected this outcome. In particular, when Jun Changshao faced his 8 subordinates, Wu Huang, he didn't panic at all. It turned out that he still had such a terrifying trump card. Thank goodness, thank goodness. That woman appeared with the token. Otherwise, if they had really angered him, they and the sect would definitely be in trouble. Speaking of the token, Lu Qianqian had to be mentioned. When she was in the Endless Ice Sea, she sensed the Grand Elder's half-sage aura and realized that the sect was in trouble, so she hurried back. However, halfway back, she heard that the Patriarch had defeated the other party. He was Wu Sheng. Lu Qianqian's eyes were filled with surprise. After much consideration, she returned to Lu Zhou in the northeast to continue cultivating. I clearly showed the Ice Thearch as token, but the forces in Lu Zhou in the northeast still dared to find trouble with the sect. Did they think that I was not serious enough? I have to find some time to teach them a lesson. Lu Qianqian was not sure how long this time would be because she had not completely understood the Ice Thearch's legacy. However, she would definitely not forgive anyone who dared to provoke the sect of all times. When she had the ability, she would first reorganize all the sects that had the Ice Thearch's legacy. A month later, the overall strength of the sect of all times disciples had greatly improved. Jun Changshao opened his status panel. The number of people in the epic mission 5 Peak Wuzong had reached 200, but the number of King Stage and Peak Martial Kings had not changed. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were different from Yi Xingchen. Even with the time acceleration, it was difficult for them to peek into the King Stage. Jun Changshao was not worried. In his opinion, there were only 5 months left. It would not be a problem for them to break through. In less than 5 months. When Li Qingyang and the others entered the space-time mystic realm to cultivate in the 2nd month and were automatically sent out, they immediately broke through and successfully entered the martial king stage. They did not have the martial arts experience of Yi Xingchen's previous life, nor did they have a mental cultivation technique like the Taishan Sutra. It was very outstanding that they could reach the martial king stage so quickly. Ding! Ding! For a day, the notifications kept ringing. The number of people in the epic mission 5 Peak Martial King stage had increased to 8. The ones who broke through were Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and Tian Qi. But then again, Yi Xingchen and Zhou Hong had reached the king stage, but there were only 2 disciples. Why was the initial number 3? Obviously, the extra one must be Lu Qianqian. That meant that she, who was in Luzhou in the northeast, had entered the king stage early. This was understandable. After all, she had the Taishan Ice Heart Sutra and an ice body. In terms of cultivation and comprehension, she might not be weaker than Yi Xingchen. The 2nd month. Those geniuses who joined the school later had also reached the peak Wuzong level. At this point, the number of people in the mission had increased from 200 to 389. At this rate, they would reach the standard of 500 peak Wuzong next month. As expected. In the 3rd month, the disciples entered the secret realm one after another to cultivate. The number of people increased from 389 to more than 600. The half-year deadline was completed in 3 months and exceeded the quota. It was undoubtedly very satisfying. Jun Changshao also relied on the time acceleration to offset the side effects of a year in advance. His peak martial king cultivation was restored. Psionic energy poured into his meridians. He felt extremely comfortable. Patriarch. Shengguan Xinyao walked in from outside and said tiredly, "I have created a lot of mental cultivation methods. Please give me some advice." Jun Changshao had given her a task earlier. She had to create as many mental cultivation methods as possible. It didn't matter even if they were half-finished. How many? About 500 to 600. So many. Jun Changshao stood up directly. Shengguan Xinyao said, "I haven't cultivated much in the past 3 months. Even when I entered the secret realm, I was creating mental cultivation methods." Amazing, amazing. Jun Changshao was impressed. She had created so many mental cultivation methods in such a short time. Her understanding of martial arts was simply terrifying. The mental cultivation methods that Shengguan Xinyao had created could only be considered as the beginning. The follow-up was not complete and was even useless. Jun Changshao used the insight talisman to turn something rotten into something magical and restored it into a usable mental cultivation method. To be honest, the two of them worked together perfectly. However, whether it was mental cultivation methods or martial arts, their levels were not high. There was no value in cultivating them at all. What was the point of researching them? Naturally, it was to make up the numbers and exchange for mental cultivation methods. Schwa! Jun Changshao opened the technique pavilion. The number of 5 elements heaven appraising techniques had increased to more than 700. It was undoubtedly very close to 998. There were so many mental cultivation methods. Some were researched by Shengguan Xinyao, and some were collected from the Demon Fiend Sect and Deicide Temple branches. Xinyao, Jun Changshao encouraged, continue to work hard. Try to create a few hundred more mental cultivation methods next month. Shengguan Xinyao nodded. In the beginning, Jun Patriarch was a little mad at this woman who wanted to get to the bottom of things. Now, he was afraid that she would melt in the palm of his hand. Of course. Whether or not the powerful martial cultivation methods in the technique pavilion could be exchanged in the shortest time was all dependent on Shengguan Xinyao, the strongest brain. Patriarch. One day, Li Qingyang said, City Lord Mu of the Heavenly Mandate Royal City is here to visit. Invite him in. Not long after, Mu Changhong walked into the main hall with his daughter Mu Honglian. He went straight to the point and said, Jun Patriarch, is your sect of all time still short of disciples? My daughter wants to be your disciple. Chapter 606. After Mu Changhong left the sect of all times, he had been waiting for Jun Changshao to find him, but there was no news from him. No. He had to take the initiative. Therefore, he took the initiative to visit him with Mu Honglian. It was not that Jun Patriarch was putting on airs, but because of the side effects, he had to develop the sect and complete the epic mission. Even if he wanted to visit City Lord Mu, it was difficult for him to find the time. In the past few months, Mu Changhong had been investigating everything about Jun Changshao. Especially when it came to his feelings. He was very satisfied with the results. The little guy had been developing the sect and had no romantic rumors at all. That was necessary. If there were paparazzi in this world, they would definitely starve to death by taking photos of Jun Patriarch's private life. Of course. Unscrupulous editors might use headlines to attract attention, such as the dignified leader of a top 3 sect had no feelings until now. Was he morally bankrupt and had a twisted personality, or was there something else? Mu Changhong loved one person in his life. Jun Changshao was a promising young talent, but he had no feelings, so he naturally had a good impression of him. Therefore, he decided to send his daughter to this sect to cultivate. Does your sect of all times still lack disciples? My daughter wants to be your disciple. The subtext of this sentence was, I lack a son-in-law, so I want to marry my daughter to you. Jun Changshao said, yes. Princess Honglian's aptitude was without a doubt, and she was a woman. She could balance the sect's situation of having too many men and too few women. Even if there were hundreds of them, he would definitely accept them without hesitation. Honglian. Mu Changhong smiled and said, hurry up and join the Patriarch. Since Jun Patriarch was a person who did great things, he would let his daughter assist him. The two of them would slowly build a revolutionary friendship, and then success would come naturally. City Lord Mu was very open-minded and did not care about a master-disciple relationship. In his opinion, men and women of similar age, as long as they were not relatives, had the right to love each other. Managing the city? He was not old and could still do the job. His daughter's happiness was more important. Mu Honglian knew that her father wanted her to join the Jun Patriarch sect. She blushed and bowed, Disciple Mu Honglian greets the Patriarch. She had long wanted to join the sect of all times. It was just that his father hadn't come out of seclusion and still had to manage the city, so he could only delay it time and time again. Now, his wish had been fulfilled. As for Mu Changhong's thoughts, Mu Honglian didn't care. She came to the sect of all times to become stronger, not for marriage. Ding! Ding! After filling in the entry form, Princess Red Lotus became a disciple of the sect of all times. June Patriarch. Mu Changhong said, "I'll leave my precious daughter to you." When he said this, he found it hard to control his emotions. He almost couldn't hold back his tears. It was said that a daughter was a father's little cotton jacket. However, she would eventually grow up and get married one day. City Lord Mu. Your daughter has only joined the sect of all times, not gotten married. Don't be so sentimental. Mu Changhong didn't leave. Instead, he started talking to Jun Changshao. The two talked about everything from family matters to the world. If they had a deeper conversation, they would talk about the origin of the universe. It's about time. When dusk arrived, Mu Changhong got up and said goodbye. Mu Honglian, who had just been arranged a room, came to send her father off. Looking at his back, she couldn't help but shout, "Father! Daughter!" Mu Changhong stopped and said, "Cultivate well in the sect of all times. Don't disappoint me." No words could express the complicated emotions in her heart. Mu Honglian could only say after a moment of silence, "Okay." Mu Changhong left. Mu Honglian started her cultivation path in the sect of all times. When she just entered the sect, everything was so strange and mysterious. Senior sister. Huo Ling lowered his voice and said, "When you come to the sect of all times, you must be careful of Senior Brotherly. His happy football is completely unreasonable." As someone who had experienced it, he had suffered greatly. Xiao, as expected, the happy soccer ball shot out from the martial arts practice field. "Senior sister, be careful." Before he finished, Huo Ling's eyes widened. Because the ball's target wasn't Mu Honglian, but him. Oh my god! He was so frightened that he hurriedly dodged. But before he could catch the ball with his face, his body also crashed into the wall with a bang. Mu Honglian was dumbfounded. The thing that flew past didn't seem fast, but it seemed to have some kind of power that made it impossible for people to dodge. This was Golden Right Legly Phase killing move. He would catch the ball with his face 100% of the time. Once this move was used, apart from the Patriarch and a few disciples who could dodge, the others could only get into position to receive it. The sect of all times had an unchanging rule. The male disciples who joined had to go through 81 difficulties. Only the female disciples had special care, so Mu Honglian didn't suffer any torture. In just a few days, she had a new understanding of the sect. Patriarch. On this day, she came to the main hall and asked, "Can I cultivate that flame martial technique?" She was talking about the red sky flame slash. Back then, Jun Changshao was in the academy. He directly resolved the move of an expert from the academy. It was still fresh in Princess Honglian's memory. That martial technique is only suitable for men. That's a pity. Mu Honglian's eyes were filled with disappointment. However, Jun Changshao said, "The sect has many good martial techniques. You can learn them as you wish. Yuanxue, take her to the technique pavilion to choose." "Yes, Patriarch." Ling Yuanxue brought Mu Honglian to the technique pavilion. The latter entered and saw the dazzling array of martial techniques on the shelves. She said in surprise, "So many martial techniques? Junior sister. These are all outside martial techniques." Patriarch said, "It's just to make up the numbers. There's no need to cultivate them. Our sect's disciples have to learn unique martial techniques." Ling Yuanxue said as she pointed to a shelf. "These are the unique martial techniques of our sect of all times. You can choose to cultivate them." "Oh." Mu Honglian walked over and picked up the self-manual. When she saw the records of the moves, she couldn't help but fall into it. Self-'s level wasn't high, but as a spirit energy type martial technique, its advantage was that its consumption was extremely low. This shocked her. Then, Mu Honglian flipped through the rupturing fist, mountain-splitting palm, spirit armor, and other martial techniques. The shock in her eyes became even stronger. Especially the 7 profound light break. This martial technique's incantation and circulation method was different from the falling star continent. It was too profound. Closing the manual, Mu Honglian couldn't calm down for a long time. She muttered, "No wonder senior brother is so strong. These martial techniques are all very good." Junior sister. Ling Yuanxue walked in and said, "This is the body-shaping pill and spirit-tempering pill. I've helped you get them." Body-shaping pill? Mu Honglian was surprised. Is it the kind of pill sold by the AI family in Huyang City? She had heard of this kind of pill before, but she didn't take it to heart. She even thought that even if it had a miraculous effect, it would only be suitable for low levels. That's right. Ling Yuanxue said, "In our sect, all new disciples have to take it." Mu Honglian was stunned. This kind of expensive pill was needed to enter the sect. This meant that there were many in the sect. Chapter 607. Inside the room. Mu Honglian stood there in a daze. She had taken the body-shaping pill and spirit-tempering pill. Her body and spiritual energy had been strengthened. Words could not describe her feelings. It turned out that the pills sold in Huyang City were so miraculous. Even she, who had reached Wuzong, could improve greatly after taking them. And the spirit-tempering pill. The AI family did not sell this kind of pill. How could the sect of all times have it? Could it be that there was a pill master? Father. Mu Honglian gradually calmed down and murmured, "I think I'm too late." Not late, not late. It was the right time to join the sect of all times. Mu Honglian was still shocked by many things. She had not experienced the various facilities to improve her martial arts. As a princess, she was destined to be in a state of shock for a long time. In the past 3 months, many peak Wuzong disciples had appeared in the sect of all times. Long Xiang and the other inner disciples who joined later had also broken through to Martial King. The number of Martial Kings on the epic level mission had increased to 22. 21 inner disciples. Why was there one more? That was right. He Wudi, the last disciple, had also broken through to Martial King. His speed was amazing. After June Patriarch saw his true strength through the dazzling sunglasses, he wanted to take a scalpel and dissect him on the spot to see how his body was constructed. The system said, "Host, dissect yourself first." He Wudi's speed of improvement was based on his super divine grade spirit root. Sect Master June's rise from a low rank to a 9th rank dual king in sword and martial arts was the most shocking part. Whoosh whoosh. On this day, a heavy aura suddenly appeared in the cafeteria. Jun Changshao said, "Is someone about to break through?" He spread out his spiritual sense and instantly locked onto Ma Yongning. He had his eyes closed and his hands were still instinctively washing the dishes. The heavy aura was still spreading wildly. Yi Xingqian felt the aura and said, "King of Sabers?" Zhou Hong's lips curled into a smile. The King of Sabers and he, the King of Swords, were born to be enemies. Now that Ma Yongning showed signs of breaking through, he was immediately eager to fight. Wow! Lu Wancher said in pleasant surprise, "Uncle Ma is going to break through." Who at this moment, an even heavier aura spread out from the cafeteria. Ma Yongning opened his eyes, and his entire person seemed to have become even more ancient than before. Zhou Hong had the same smell. Sure enough, the Sword King and the Saber King were extraordinary existences. Only when they appeared older and more experienced would they appear to be more impressive. "Blade, come!" Ma Yongning shouted. Whoosh! The kitchen knife on the chopping board flew out and was caught in his hand. This was the knife that was broken by Jun Changshao in the past. Later, He changed it into a kitchen knife just to help Lu Wancher cut vegetables every day. The fact that a swordsman had been reduced to a cook made people sigh. However, Ma Yongning did not forget his original intention. Instead, he gradually comprehended the profoundness of the saber as he chopped the blocks. His cultivation level did not decrease, but increased instead. He successfully stepped into the realm of Saber King. This was what a machete man was. Just like a swordsman, they didn't pursue cultivation step by step, but focused on comprehension. Once he comprehended it, he would have it. If you don't understand, you'll always be in the same place. Whoosh! Ma Yongning leaped up. The kitchen knife in his hand shone brightly. One could only see a heavy saber aura slashing down. If one were to slow down his movements by 10 times, one could see that this was completely the movement of chopping vegetables. Saber King. Attaining the Tao with the saber. Ma Yongning was able to reach this level because he comprehended it while chopping vegetables. Therefore, he was known as the Kitchen Knife King. Bang! Bang! The saber aura slammed down. Deep and long saber marks appeared on the training field. The heavy aura spread, causing the disciples in the distance to be in awe. A swordsman, showing off his ability. A saber, powerful and heavy. Thud! Ma Yongning floated down. The kitchen knife in his hand spun between his thumb, almost cutting off the other 4 fingers. He inserted it into the scabbard at his waist. One word, handsome. Great! Jun Changshao walked out of the hall and applauded. Clap clap clap. The disciples followed suit and applauded as well. However, Jun Changshao pointed to the training field and said, "You broke so many floors. 3 months of martial arts resources will be deducted." Plop! Ma Yongning collapsed on the ground. Why did I come out to show off? What the hell? Ma Yongning broke through to the Saber King level. The number of people who completed the epic mission was now 23. This was something that Jun Changshao did not expect. However, he was worried next. The talented inner disciples had broken through to the Martial King level. Who would fill the remaining 27 spots? In fact, Li Tiantian and the other outer disciples had also reached the peak of Wuzong. However, due to their limited aptitude, it would take a lot of time to break through to the Martial King level. There are still a lot of supreme-grade aptitude modification elixirs. Let's give them to the outer disciples first. Jun Patriarch took out all the aptitude elixirs. As for how many there were, the author did not count them. In short, there were a lot. For outer disciples like Li Tiantian and Sima Zhongda, their appearance rate was not bad. However, their aptitude was not outstanding. They had to start with upper-grade aptitude. Jun Patriarch spent another 2,000 contribution points to buy 40 bottles of upper-grade aptitude modification elixirs, upgrading all of them to supreme grade. Thank you, Patriarch. Li Tiantian and Lin Zhanghang were extremely excited. They had greater confidence in breaking through to the Martial King level. Elder Wei. Jun Changshao came to the herb garden and asked, "When will that batch of herbs mature?" "It will take about 2 months, Elder Wei said. There's still time. If one's aptitude increased, they might not be able to break through to the Martial King level in a short time. Therefore, they had to refine the Martial Master Pill as soon as possible. Only then could they reach the target within half a year. It was not difficult for the disciples to break through. The hardest part was for the elders. He went to ask Jiang Ye and the Ning brothers. The answer he got was that they had both broken through 3 levels. Tens of thousands of natural spirit stones were provided. If they could not break through, they would really be hopeless. I should be able to complete the 5th epic quest in half a year. Jun Changshao was very confident. Of course. Completing it alone was definitely not the goal. He had to exceed the quota and get more rewards. After completing it, I can enter the Martial Emperor level. Jun Changshao rubbed his hands. The next second, he suddenly thought of something and said in surprise, "There's still Shilu. Even if I complete Shilu, I might not be able to break through to the next realm. Smart guy, the system said. Fuck. Jun Changshao broke down. Isn't this Wyoke a scam? The system said, the rewards for the epic quest are rich. If the host completes it, he will definitely make a profit. Jun Changshao was silent. Although that was the case, 2 epic quests were equivalent to creating 2 obstacles in the way of breaking through to the next realm. The difficulty was definitely much higher than 1. And this was the Martial King level. When he reached the peak of the Martial Emperor level in the future, there would be 2. Sigh. Jun Changshao said helplessly, if I had known, I would have taken the single path and not practiced sword and martial arts. Another month passed. There were more than 800 peak Wuzong disciples in the sect of all times. Only Zhong Yi and Jing Wugo broke through to the Martial King level first. The number had increased to 25. There are still 2 more months. It should be fine, Jun Changshao murmured. Shengwan Xinyao walked into the main hall and placed a pile of mental cultivation methods on the table. She said, Patriarch, I've studied a few hundred more. Please guide me. Okay. Jun Changshao hurriedly crushed the Talisman of Insight. Then, he spent the whole day improving the half-completed mental cultivation methods. Then, he opened the cultivation method pavilion. The number of 5 elements heaven appraisal technique was 10909888. The exchange button also lit up. Ding! Consumed 998 secret manuals. Successfully exchanged for 5 elements heaven appraisal technique X1. It has been transferred to the space ring. After purchasing this mental cultivation method secret manual, the system automatically matched it to the sect's cultivation method. Jun Patriarch did not hesitate and directly copied 10,000 copies. Qingyang. Yes. Tomorrow morning, don't leave after the morning exercise. I have something to say. Yes. Chapter 608. The next day. After the routine morning exercise, Jun Changshao distributed the 5 elements heaven mirror manual to the disciples. Actually, they could also get it from the martial technique machine, but that would make it more grand. The 5 elements heaven mirror manual had 5 chapters: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The disciples could choose one according to their preference, or they could choose more. As long as they were awesome, they could even cultivate all 5 elements. This mental cultivation method, Yi Xingqian said in disbelief, it actually contains the 5 elements. There were countless martial techniques in the Falling Star continent. The Night Emperor had cultivated many of them before, but most of them were related to the 5 elements. The powerful dual heaven of ice and fire only combined water and fire. He had never seen a mental cultivation method that contained all 5 elements. He continued reading. Yi Xingqian was even more shocked. Although he had not started cultivating it, his intuition told him that this mental cultivation method was not inferior to his Taishen Sutra. That's right. The 5 elements heaven mirror manual was above divine grade. In terms of level, it was even higher than the Taishen Sutra, but the prerequisite was to cultivate all 5 elements to perfection. For body building, there was the body metamorphosis scripture. For stabilizing the mind, there was the mind cleansing art. The 5 elements heaven mirror manual filled in the gaps in the comprehension of the heaven and earth elements. Yi Xingqian said in disbelief, why didn't he let the disciples cultivate such a powerful mental cultivation method earlier? In another room, He Wudi was also reading the 5 elements heaven mirror manual. The shock in his heart could not be described with words. He knew better than Yi Xingqian that a mental cultivation method that contained all 5 elements was extremely rare even in his world. It was definitely a superior mental cultivation method. It must have been left behind by the 7 profound sage. He Wudi exclaimed. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others also felt that the 5 elements heaven mirror manual was very powerful, but they were not as shocked. Instead, they started cultivating it. What element should we cultivate? Is there a need to think about it? We should cultivate fire or metal first. After many disciples made their choices, most of them chose the element that best displayed their combat strength. Of course, the female disciples mainly cultivated wood and water. Mu Honglian hadn't even started using the various martial arts facilities in the sect when she received the 5 elements heaven appraising spell. She was stunned for a long time before she came back to her senses. Not being able to cultivate the scarlet firmament raging flame slash made her very depressed. However, this kind of mental cultivation method that contained the fire attribute was definitely dozens of times stronger than the mental cultivation method that she cultivated. I'm not late, I'm not late. The outer sect disciples made their choices one after another. Most of them chose to cultivate alone. Inner disciples were more confident and had higher aptitudes, so they were more inclined to cultivate more. For example, Xiao Ziji chose the earth, fire, and metal elements to optimize his defense and attack. Li Qingyang and Su Xiaoma were the same. The most ferocious ones were still Yi Xingchen and He Wudi. Both of them wanted to become a full cultivator. Of course, this would take a lot of time. However, if he succeeded in cultivating all 5 elements and achieved the cycle of the 5 elements, the benefits would be immeasurable. Jun Changshao sat in the study and carefully studied the 5 elements heaven appraising spell. He said, "There's no need to consider, I'll definitely cultivate all of them." Not only did he want to cultivate all of them, he also ordered his disciples to cultivate all of them even if they were to cultivate alone now. 5 elements heaven appraising spell. It was a type of mental cultivation method of the 5 elements. If one wanted to break through, cultivating all of them was a must. In time, the disciples of the sect of all times comprehended all of their mental cultivation methods to the large success stage. Any one of them would be at the great perfection stage of the 5 elements. The scene was simply unimaginable. Whoosh whoosh. Half a month later, many disciples on the martial arts practice field were either gathering flames in their hands or shining with an incomparably sharp golden light. The 5 elements heaven appraising spell was easy to learn. Even those with low aptitude could comprehend it in a short period of time and transform their body's attributes, thus possessing a certain type of energy of the 5 elements. Similarly, if one wanted to master it, they would need time to comprehend it. Whoosh whoosh. Su Xiaoma rose into the air and reached out with both hands. Scorching flames immediately whistled out and gathered into a chop seal that suddenly blasted into the void. He used the Scarlet Heaven Raging Flame Slash. With the support of the fire element, the power was obviously stronger than before. Hee. Li Fei scratched his head and said, "Senior brother Su, how about we fight?" Ha! Su Xiaoma said, "You've got guts, haven't you?" Senior brother Su, accept the challenge. Senior brother Su, accept the challenge. Many disciples followed suit. All right. Su Xiaoma grinned and said, "Then let's fight." Shwa! His fellow disciples retreated one after another, emptying the huge martial arts practice field. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei walked in. Then, they each used the cloud-treading steps and released their flames, unleashing their fiercest attacks. Scarlet Heaven Raging Flame Slash. Scarlet Heaven Raging Flame Slash. Whoosh whoosh. As the two of them moved around, they tacitly used the same martial arts skill at the first moment. The two types of flames converged in mid-air and clashed with each other with scorching heat. Boom! Flames spewed out and the heat was monstrous. Thump. 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 Su Xiaoma and Li Tian each took 7 to 8 steps back. From the looks of it, the two of them didn't seem to have a winner. Buzz! At this moment, a green light suddenly appeared under their feet. Then, vines appeared one after another. Oh no! Li Fei was shocked and hurriedly wanted to get up, but the vines spread too quickly and wrapped around his legs in an instant. Whoosh whoosh. Su Xiaoma flew up, and the scorching flames condensed into a chop seal and blasted it down. However, just as it was about to hit Li Fei, it suddenly dissipated. The vines under his feet also evaporated. Junior brother. Su Xiaoma landed and smiled. Do you admit defeat? Li Fei scratched his head and said, I didn't expect senior brother to use the power of the wood element. This is something I didn't expect. That's why. Su Xiaoma said, you're still a little inexperienced. After cultivating the 5 elements heaven reflection technique, the disciples of the sect of all times would become some kind of 5 elements martial cultivator. That was only secondary. What really benefited them the most was cultivation and comprehension. Yi Xingchen surpassed them because he relied on the Taishen Sutra. The 5 elements heaven reflection technique was not inferior to the former in terms of level. Naturally, it would bring great benefits to the disciples. Another half a month passed. Many disciples entered the spacetime secret realm to cultivate. Their comprehension of the technique deepened, and the speed of their improvement was really terrifying. Patriarch Li Qingyang said, after this cultivation, a total of 1,500 disciples have reached the peak of Wuzong. Jun Changxiao's eyes widened. In the past, the growth rate was around 200 per month. This time, after the accelerated cultivation, it increased from 800 to 1,500. This was definitely a few times faster. Li Qingyang said, many of our disciples are also breaking through small realms much faster than before. Jun Changxiao held his chin and said, it seems that the introduction of the martial techniques in the technique pavilion wasn't exaggerating. It's really powerful. The disciples improved quickly after cultivating the 5 elements heaven reflection technique. But this month, none of them broke through to the martial king realm. They had just finished cultivating the technique and had not completely comprehended it. It was unrealistic to expect them to immediately benefit from breaking through to the next realm. There's only 1 month left. Jun Changxiao said, the herbs should be ready soon. A few days later, Elder Wei entered the main hall and said, Patriarch, the herbs are ready. Quick, give it to me. Jun Changxiao put all the herbs into the space ring and opened the pill pavilion. A smile immediately appeared on his face. Because the herbs for the martial master pill were automatically matched, the number of pills that could be refined was 70. This is 70 martial kings. Maximizing the refinement. Ding! 8 hours later, the first martial king pill was refined. It was a very round pill that did not need to be reclined. It emitted a faint power, and one could tell at a glance that it was extraordinary. My sweetheart. Jun Changxiao held the martial king pill and said, whether or not we can complete the epic mission depends on you. Don't let me down. Chapter 609. Huff huff, inside the hall, a powerful Emperor Realm aura was emitted out of nowhere, startling the disciples who were cultivating outside and causing them to turn their heads around. It seems like only the Patriarch and Hall Leader Li are inside. Could it be that Hall Leader Li is about to break through to the martial Emperor Realm? Hall Leader Li has been reporting to the Patriarch almost every day. It's a coincidence that she is about to break through. The crowd discussed. However, it was not a coincidence. It was intentional. Jun Changxiao needed someone to test the martial emperor pills on, thus he thought of Li Luoqiu. This woman was busy with the affairs of the sect every day, but she did not neglect her cultivation. She had reached the peak of Wuzong a long time ago. Huff huff. The aura lingered for a while, before it was quickly withdrawn. The disciples had witnessed the breakthrough of Li Qingyang and the others, thus they understood that they had successfully broken through to the martial emperor realm. This is too magical, too magical. Inside the hall, Li Luoqiu's eyes were filled with disbelief. Her cultivation had reached the martial emperor realm, thus the process of breaking through was extremely simple. She had come to report on the situation of the sect as usual. The Patriarch had given her a pill, and she had broken through to the martial emperor realm after consuming it. It felt like a dream to her. Not bad, not bad. Jun Changxiao's lips curled into a smile. The martial master pill had the side effect of reducing one's lifespan, but it could help one reach the martial emperor realm in a short period of time. For a martial cultivator like Li Luoqiu, reaching the peak of Wuzong would be her limit if she did not have any resources. Consuming the Martial Emperor pill would reduce one's lifespan, but the increase in lifespan after breaking through could not only offset it, but also prolong it. Of course. The peak of Wuzong, who was nearing the end of their lifespan, could not consume the Martial Master pill. Since one's lifespan was limited to begin with, one would lose another 100 years of lifespan after consuming the pill. The members of the sect of all times were young and energetic. Therefore, the side effect was nothing to the disciples. Ding! 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 In the following days, a large batch of Martial Emperor pills were produced. When there were enough pills, Jun Changshao said, "Qingyang, call Li Tian and the others here." Yes. A short while later. Li Tian, Cui Bujian, Sima Zhongda, Lin Zhanghang, Hua Ling, Chu Xiaonan, and the other disciples walked into the main hall. Jun Changshao distributed the pills and said, "Take them at the martial arts practice field." Yes. Li Tian and the others shouted. Chu Xiaonan muttered in his heart, "What medicinal pill is this?" Senior brother Chu. Hua Ling sat cross-legged on the martial arts practice field and said in a low voice, "The pill given by the patriarch must be powerful. It's better to take it quickly." Yes. Chu Xiaonan swallowed the pill. The martial master pill melted in his mouth and turned into surging energy that instantly spread throughout his body. The expressions of Li Tian and the others changed drastically. At this moment, their bodies were filled with boundless energy, and the spiritual energy in their spirit cores was transforming crazily. That feeling was indescribably satisfying. Whoosh whoosh huff, in an instant, the entire martial arts practice field was enveloped by a majestic aura. The scene was extremely shocking. Oh my God! Senior brothers, let's break through together. They are all at the peak of Wuzong. If they want to break through, won't they break through to the martial king realm? The disciples of the sect of all times widened their eyes. Even Yixingchen, who had just returned from his cultivation in the backyard, was dumbfounded on the spot. Collective breakthroughs had been staged in the sect before, but sitting in the martial arts practice field and gathering an incomparably majestic aura was definitely a mess. Moreover, breaking through was not a martial disciple or martial master, but a martial king. Xie Guanquan, who was inspecting the defenses of Qingyang City, raised his head and looked in the direction of Iron Bone Mountain. He saw a vast amount of spiritual energy gathering in the sky, forming an incomparably spectacular scene. Patriarch! Look! In the AI family, AI Shanka raised his head and exclaimed. AI Shangyao, AI Shangfang, and the other upper echelons of the family walked out one after another. Looking at the majestic energy gathering in the sky above Iron Bone Mountain, their mouths gradually opened. Li Tian and the other 30 disciples of the sect of all times sat in the martial arts practice field and broke through. The commotion could be said to be huge. The 8 cities of Qingyang County could clearly see it and were deeply shocked. Further away, in the Zhongshan sect, Ma Yunteng, Wang Donglin, and the others were also watching, their eyes flickering with astonishment. The aura gathering in the sky above Iron Bone Mountain meant that someone was about to break through to Martial King, but why was it so intense? Could it be that the person breaking through was not ordinary? That was not the case, it was because there were too many people. On this day, there seemed to be a natural phenomenon in the sky above Iron Bone Mountain, which was widely discussed by the martial cultivators of Qingyang County. On this day, in the martial arts practice field of the sect of all times, Li Tian, Hua Ling, and the other 30 disciples all broke through to Martial King. For a sect to have so many people break through to Martial King at the same time, they could definitely apply for the Guinness Book of Records. Ding! Ding! After Li Tian and the others collectively broke through, Jun Changshao heard continuous notifications. The number of martial kings required for the epic mission had increased from 25 to 55. Although Li Luoqiu had also reached martial king, her position was the hall master, so she was not included in the list of disciples. Otherwise, there would be 56. Perfect. Jun Changshao said with a smile. Martial Emperor pills could still be refined, which could allow more disciples to break through to Martial King. The number would definitely exceed 50. However, the number for the elders was still 0 to 1. Martial Emperor pills could be used to forcibly raise one's cultivation level, but the Martial King level could only be achieved by themselves. A few more days passed. The remaining 39 Martial Emperor pills were refined. Jun Changshao distributed them to the outer disciples according to the order of entry, and let them all break through to Martial King. It's happening again. Who is breaking through in the sect of all times? Why is there such a huge commotion every now and then? Every time the disciples collectively broke through, the vast momentum would stir up the minds of the martial cultivators of Qingyang County, causing them to break down. Then how strong was the sect of all times now? Including Jun Changshao, the elders, the hall masters, and the disciples, there were a total of 99 martial kings. The number of peak Wuzong disciples was still in the thousands, and the number of 6th and 7th grade Wuzong disciples was uncountable. They wanted to find a martial master in the sect of all times. Sorry, there weren't any. In the past few months, the disciples of the sect of all times had entered the spacetime secret realm one after another. With the training tower and spirit tempering pills to temper their spiritual energy, as long as they reached the peak of martial master, breaking through to Wuzong would be a piece of cake. Some people would ask, what about the little lowly, Yao Menjing? After she cultivated the bloody cloud sky scripture, she had already broken through to Wuzong level. Her speed was so fast that she was probably second to He Wudi in the sect. If the news that a newly promoted sect couldn't find a single martial master among their disciples spread out, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Potential top 3. To be honest, the certification hall needed to change the rules and expand it to top 4 or 5, or even a Super A to be awarded to the sect of all times. The most ridiculous thing was that after the disciples' strength increased, they all cultivated the hidden cultivation technique and suppressed their cultivation level to martial master. This was called keeping a low profile. It was also called playing the pig to eat the tiger. Perhaps one day, some ignorant force would think that the sect of all times was easy to bully and bring people over. In the end, all the disciples would erupt with Wuzong or martial king cultivation, which would definitely scare them witless. 10 days later. Ding! Another notification sounded in his ear. The Elder's value on the epic mission finally became 11, completely meeting the completion requirements. Who broke through? Ning Duzue broke through to the peak of Martial King first. However, Shiwu's mission had a fixed time limit. Before half a year, even if the requirements were met, he would not take the initiative to complete it. Ding! A few more days passed. Ning Duxing also relied on spirit stones to successfully break through to the peak of Martial King, and the value became 21. Jun Changshao grinned and said, peak of Wuzong, king level, and peak of Martial King all exceeded the minimum value. After completing it, the reward will definitely be very rich. Time continued to pass. On the last day of the mission, in the last hour, our elder Jiang finally lived up to expectations and broke through to the peak of Martial King with the help of natural spirit stones. He opened the details of the epic mission details. Within half a year, the sect's disciples broke through to the peak of Wuzong, 2100500, king level, 9550, elders broke through to the peak of Martial King, 31. On the roof of the main hall, Jun Changshao wore sunglasses and whispered with a cigar in his mouth, "Come on, my reward." Chapter 610. Time passed slowly. 2 hours had passed, and the epic mission 5 began to settle. He waited for a few minutes, but nothing happened. Jun Changshao could not help but ask, "Why is there no reward yet?" "Don't worry," the system said, "it's settling now." Okay. Jun Changshao continued to wait. He waited for another 10 minutes, but there was still nothing. He began to feel restless. He had worked hard for half a year, and the mission required him to do his best. He was just waiting for the reward, but there was nothing. What was the difference between this and a broken chapter? One day, he would have a sword in his hand and slash the 19th street of Jianghu. Ding! Just as June Patriarch was about to explode from anxiety, a crisp notification sound came. It was like a voice from the sky, stirring the deepest part of his soul. It's here, it's here. My reward. June Changshao stood up, stepped on the roof, and got into position. Ding! Host's disciple realm has reached the requirements and met the defined conditions. Epic mission completed, 200% completion rate. Host receives 20,000 contribution points. Ding! Sect contribution points, 22991200000. Ding! Contribution points overflow. 20,000 contribution points reward. Awesome! Super awesome! Calm down, calm down. This was just the beginning. With such a high completion rate, the reward must be rich. Holy Grade Talent Modification Liquid, Sword Formation Modification Liquid, High Grade Sect Leader Ball, Experience Talisman, Medicine. Check it out. Give me a few sets of all of them. June Changshao sang a rap impromptu, shaking his head and dancing with joy. It was very skr. Ding! Detected that the host has completed Epic Mission 6. The reward for Epic Mission 5 will be distributed together with the completion of Epic Mission 6. Medicine, June Patriarch's body stiffened. His hands were still on the 6th position. What the hell is the distribution? The system added, it means that after the host completes Epic Mission 6, the two rewards will be distributed together. Plop! June Changshao fell down from the main hall. Oh no! Sect leader fell down. Quick! Quick! Carry him to the medicine hall. The 5th epic quest was completed with a completion rate of 200%. The reward was 20,000 contribution points, which was extremely high. However, the reward was suppressed. June Changshao wanted to cry but had no tears. What was even more devastating was, and together with Shirlu. If he wanted to get his reward, he would have to wait for at least another year. Scam! June Changshao didn't have the strength to complain. He could only silently open the shop and spend the extra contribution points. With about 22,000 contribution points in hand, Liang Jingru gave him the courage to directly click on the advanced shop. Although June Patriarch was already at the pinnacle of the sword and martial arts dual king, he was still a far cry from the half-step Wusheng. He had to make himself stronger as much as possible. Raising one's cultivation realm could only shorten the gap between them, but it could not make them equal. Therefore, the products in the advanced shopping mall played a decisive role. Buy more universal talismans? Impossible. After all, it was only a one-time consumable, and the power it brought was only temporary. If he wanted to buy it, he would buy something that could increase his power permanently. For example, in the first row, there was a product called Sacred Flame Body. In the past, when he saw the price of 10,000 contribution points, June Patriarch was so scared that he hurriedly retracted it. He did not have the courage to continue reading, but now, he did not hesitate to click on the details. Item, Sacred Flame Body. Introduction, the strongest flame body in the mortal world. Effect, the user can create a sacred flame body in a short period of time, and control 3 types of divine grade fire seed and 10 types of saint grade fire seed. Advantage, after achieving the sacred flame body, it will be twice the result with half the effort when comprehending fire attribute cultivation techniques. When using fire attribute martial techniques, the power will also increase by 50%. Disadvantage, none. Price, 10,000 contribution points. The strongest flame body in the mortal world? Once it is formed, it can also control 3 types of divine grade fire seed and 10 types of saint grade fire seed. June Changshao said with a burning gaze, very strong. Calm down, calm down. There were still many good things, so there was no rush to buy them. June Patriarch suppressed his excitement and browsed through the other products. For example, the 9 transformation marrow cleansing pill was even more awesome. After consuming it, not only could it instantly raise the spirit root to divine grade, it could also reconstruct the flesh and meridians. It could be said to be a true marrow and bone cleansing. This is a real elixir. After the trash consumes it, he will immediately be able to counterattack like the protagonist. Jun Changshao exclaimed. Then, he looked at the dragon and elephant prajna palm. The introduction said that if one cultivated it successfully, they could refine their strength into the power of the dragon and elephant. When using it, they could even condense the dragon and elephant dharma idol. It was a very terrifying palm technique. Jun Changshao began to imagine that after learning it, he would be able to gather the power of thousands of dragon and elephant with a raise of his hand. The opponent's reaction would definitely be, how many are there? Of course. There were also some high-grade shops that were not of much use. For example, the 5 elements yin-yang harmony art, because it had similar functions to the 5 elements heavenly mirror art, it had no value. Jun Changshao browsed for a while and decided to choose between the sacred flame body and the 9 transformation marrow cleansing pill. After all, both of these items were real aptitude transformations that would help in the long-term development. I am already a saint grade spirit root, only one step away from divine grade. My flesh and meridians have also been refined to the extreme. It seems a bit wasteful to buy the 9 transformation marrow cleansing pill. So, ding! The host has spent 10,000 contribution points and obtained the sacred flame body X1. It has been transferred into the space ring. Ding! Sect contribution points, 1299120000. A cluster of flame appeared in the space ring, floating in midair and emitting a scorching aura. This was the sacred flame body. Jun Changshao stood in front of it in his soul form. He gently raised his hand and touched the flame with his fingers. He did not feel it burning his hand. Whoosh! At this moment, the sacred flame body suddenly split into wisps of flame, lingering around his arm before flying into his mouth and nose. In an instant, a scorching hot flame erupted in his body, causing Jun Changshao's face to turn ferocious. Ah! A scream could be heard. What's the situation? It's the voice of the patriarch. Something happened. Shua! 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 Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others rushed into the main hall as fast as they could. Their eyes widened. At this moment, Jun Changshao had fallen from his seat and was half squatting on the ground, holding his head in pain. His exposed skin was as red as a piece of iron. Patriarch! All the disciples exclaimed. Elder Zhen walked in and frowned. Evil fire in his body? Elder Wei rushed in and saw Jun Changshao's body was red and crying. He said solemnly, "Eldest disciple is not here. Otherwise, with her ice attribute, she should be able to suppress the evil fire in Patriarch's body." Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji were about to step forward. "Don't go." Elder Wei hurriedly stopped them. "The power of the evil fire is extremely terrifying. You will be burned if you go near it." "Then what should we do?" "How about we contact eldest disciple? She's still in Luzhou." "There's no time." All the disciples were in a mess. Elder Wei was a veteran. He was not flustered in the face of danger. "Quickly call all the disciples who cultivate the water element here." "Yes." Not long after, hundreds of disciples who had comprehended the water element using the 5 elements heavenly reflection technique came to the main hall. They unleashed the power of the water element together, forming a wave that swept towards Patriarch. However, when the water element's spiritual energy came within 10 feet of Jun Changshao, it evaporated instantly. It could not penetrate into his body at all, let alone cool him down. Elder Wei frowned. "What kind of powerful evil fire is this?" "Elder Wei." Li Qingyang said anxiously, "What should we do?" Whoosh! At this moment, a flame flew out from outside and stood in front of Jun Changshao. It was the little dragon that had been sleeping all this time. "Master!" It quickly transformed into its human form and rushed over. "I'm here to save you." Chapter 611. Little Long Long, who was sleeping, seemed to realize that Jun Changshao was in trouble. It rushed from the study to the main hall, activated its human form, and pounced over without hesitation. It planned to use its body to share the great pain of the flames for its master. This kind of feeling made one want to cry. However, just as Little Long Long pounced over, its determined face suddenly turned into uncontrollable ecstasy. Master's fire element was too strong. If it could share the pain, it would definitely increase its strength by a lot. Smack! Little Long Long hugged Jun Changshao directly. It was dry and clumsy, not smooth at all. Hold him! Huff huff! Suddenly, hot flames erupted from Jun Changshao's body, instantly enveloping him and Little Long Long. This, Elder Wei and Elder Zhen widened their eyes. This was because the blazing flames that rose abruptly weren't crimson in color. Instead, they were a deep blue color similar to the color of the sea. Blue heavenly spirit flame. Zhen Dejuan exclaimed, divine-grade flames. Huff huff! Right at this moment, the flames surrounding Jun Changshao's body suddenly converged and were replaced by a purple flame. This is, Elder Wei couldn't calm down. Purple mystic sacred flame. Huff huff! As soon as he finished speaking, the color of the flames changed again, and finally turned into a normal color. The temperature also rose instantly, as if the entire main hall was about to be ignited. Elder Wei and Elder Zhen couldn't tell what kind of flame it was, but considering the changes just now and the two divine-grade flames that appeared, they were sure that it wasn't ordinary. Scarlet Star Absolute Flame. Mu Honglian, who had been silent all this time, spoke, her eyes filled with shock. Blue Heavenly Spirit Flame, Purple Mystic Sacred Flame, and Scarlet Star Absolute Flame were all recognized as the strongest divine-grade flames in the Falling Star continent. Now that they appeared around the Patriarch one after another, the shock was self-evident. No wonder he was in so much pain. If an ordinary person were to endure the three divine-grade flames, they would have been burned into nothingness. Huff huff! The flames around Jun Changshao began to change again. In a short time, there were 10 flames, each with a different color and temperature. Mu Honglian opened her mouth and said in disbelief, they are all divine-grade flames. 3 divine-grade flames. 10 types of saint-grade. Now that they had appeared one after another around Jun Changshao, it was clear that he was undergoing the transformation of his body of holy flame. The process was very painful. Every minute and second felt like they were in hell, enduring endless torment. If it weren't for the reader's feelings, I could have tortured Jun Patriarch for 3 chapters. I could guarantee that he'd be in so much pain that he'd wish he was dead and would remember it for the rest of his life. In the main hall, miserable screams rang out incessantly like pigs being slaughtered. Elder Wei and the others could only watch helplessly. At this moment, there was nothing they could do. They could only pray in their hearts that the Patriarch would be able to avert the disaster. The torture of these 13 types of flames lasted for a full 2 hours. Jun Changshao's initial screams slowly turned into weak groans. It was clear that he was enjoying being toyed with. Elder Wei, the Patriarch can't hold on much longer. Li Qingyang clenched his fists and said. Woo woo woo. Lu Wancher wiped her tears and said, Patriarch, you mustn't let anything happen to you. Xiao Ziji and the others were also in pain. At this moment, the scorching temperature that enveloped the main hall suddenly dropped, and the constantly changing flames began to converge. The first thing that appeared in their field of vision was Little Long Long. At this moment, its entire body was red, and it was emitting waves of heat as it breathed. During the process of Jun Changshao condensing his body of holy flame, it was also inevitably enveloped and endured the burning and destruction from the 13 types of flames. Although the process was painful. However, the pain was accompanied by happiness. After experiencing the tempering of the 13 types of flames, Little Long Long felt that its physical body, meridians, and even its control of flames had greatly improved. Ha ha ha. It laughed out loud. Li Qingyang and the others' mouths twitched. We're sad, but you're laughing so happily. Aren't you worried about your master at all? Swish! Little Long Long spread out its arms and took a few steps back. Gradually, Jun Changshao appeared in their field of vision. He was half-squatting on the ground with one hand covering his face. His body was trembling violently, as if he had yet to walk out from the endless pain of being burned. Zong, ahaha. As soon as Li Qingyang opened his mouth, Jun Changshao suddenly raised his head and laughed. It's over. Lu Wancher said nervously, Patriarch's head has been burned. Swish! Jun Changshao suddenly rushed out of the main hall. When he brushed past Li Qingyang and the others, it immediately brought a wave of scorching heat. Everyone hurriedly condensed their psionic energy to barely resist it. Swish! Swish! They hurriedly chased out and saw Patriarch standing on the training field. His black hair was dancing in the wind, and the magic-modified hair gel had also lost its effect under the scorching heat. Hu Jun Changshao raised his hand. His 5 fingers formed a claw, and a cluster of dark blue flames gathered in it. It was like a ghost from the deep sea, emitting a strange and unpredictable aura. This was Holy Spirit Blue Flame. Swish! Suddenly, the flame between his palms turned purple. This was the mysterious purple sacred flame. Swish! The flame then turned into the Crimson Star Absolute Flame. Then, the other 10 types of sacred grade flames kept changing between Jun Changshao's palms, showing beautiful colors. Elder Wei suddenly realized something and exclaimed, Sacred Flame Physique. This is the Sacred Flame Physique. Elder Zhen said solemnly, 3 types of divine grade flames and 10 types of sacred grade flames. It is indeed the same as the strongest fire physique in the records. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were overjoyed. They were not happy that Patriarch had condensed the strongest fire physique. They were happy that he was fine. No one was more shocked than Mu Honglian. When Jun Changshao released the flames that he controlled one by one, the flames in her body also became restless, as if they were being pulled and interfered with. Daughter, although the fire spirit physique is ranked 9th among the fire physiques, there is a world of difference between it and the sacred flame physique. Her father's words echoed in her ears. Now that she saw the sacred flame physique with her own eyes, Mu Honglian truly understood the meaning of world of difference. On the training field, Jun Changshao was still releasing flames to his heart's content. With the exquisite fire, he could only be considered a decent fire martial cultivator. Now that he controlled 3 types of divine grade flames and 10 types of sacred grade flames and had condensed the sacred flame physique, he was definitely the strongest fire martial cultivator in the Falling Star continent. The scorching flames whizzed out and instantly formed a seal in the air, then blasted upward. Under the powerful force and flames, space seemed to be mercilessly torn apart by a pair of giant hands. With the sacred flame physique, the power of the crimson sky raging flame slash, which was linked to the fire attribute, was more than 2 or 3 times stronger. Wu Huang. Sorry, but even a 4th or 5th stage martial cultivator might not dare to face Jun Changshao's flame slash head-on. 10,000 contribution points, his death was not in vain. Whoosh! Jun Changshao withdrew all the flames into his body and placed his hands behind his back. He said proudly, from today onwards, I am also a physique cultivator. Chapter 6:12. Night. Flames burned on the martial stage, illuminating everything. Elder Wei and Elder Zhen were sitting at 2 different tables. Their hands holding the mutton skewers were trembling slightly, and the corners of their mouths were twitching. There was no other reason. This was roasted with the Crimson Spirit Absolute Flame. Needless to say, it tasted pretty good and was very chewy. But that was not the point. The point was that the Patriarch was sitting in front of the grill. Sometimes he would release a divine grade flame, sometimes he would release a saint grade flame. Sacred flame body. To let him roast a skewer, this operation was simply too flashy. Before, Xiao Ziji also used a sniper rifle to shoot animals, so this was just a normal operation. Patriarch. Lu Wancher shouted, "Sprinkle more cumin." Okay. Jun Changshao put down the patriarch's attitude, put down the attitude of a ninth-grade sword king, and organized a grand barbecue party for the disciples. Why? Happy, comfortable. Little Long Long, who had returned to his original state, stood on the table. His eyes flashed with red flames as if he was very angry. He said, "Let go." Xiao Moxian, who was in her human form, held a jug of wine and said with wide eyes, "No." Little Long Long said in a deep voice, "If I hadn't just activated my combat form during the day, do you believe that I would have beaten you so badly that even your mother wouldn't be able to recognize you?" Humph. Xiao Moxian said, "This queen still hasn't settled accounts with you about last time." Little Long Long sneered, "What? Do you want to fight? Afraid of you?" Xiao Moxian's temper flared. The two stared at each other for a moment. Little Long Long jumped down from the table and proudly said, "Wait until I recover. I will let you understand how weak you are." Helping his master share the burn of the flame made him very tired. However, there were also great benefits. Whether it was strength or control of the flame, they had both become stronger. Li Qingyang and the others' mouths twitched. Although Xiao Moxian was not human, she was very cute. Little Long Long was not a bootlicker and was so fierce. He was really manly. The barbecue party continued until midnight. When the disciple woke up the next day, he continued to cultivate as usual. Jun Changshao, who had forged his body of holy flame, entered the spirit-gathering array to cultivate. Just as he circulated the 5 elements heavenly reflection technique, he discovered that the rate at which he absorbed fire attribute energy was several times faster than before. It was a pity. His realm was stuck. No matter how much he absorbed, the spiritual energy in his 2 spirit cores did not change at all. In any case, I'm stronger than before. Jun Changshao was very satisfied. He stood up and returned to the main hall, thinking to himself, should I buy another item from the advanced merchant shop? This time, he had his eyes on the dragon and elephant Prajna palm strike. Now that he had the physique, he would definitely be equipped with an awesome martial technique. To forge iron, one had to be strong. However, if he could get some support equipment, it would definitely be the icing on the cake. No. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, Xiniao can create martial arts, and it's only a matter of time before she can exchange for the Universe 9 Seals palms. Spending 10,000 contribution points to buy a martial art seems a bit wasteful. The main reason was that money was too tight. If he had 100 or 80,000 contribution points, he would definitely say, there's no harm in having more skills. In the end, Jun Changshao did not buy the dragon elephant Prajna palm. Instead, he locked his eyes on the mechanical armed wings. The thing that moved him the most was that he could fly freely after wearing it. Fly. Not to mention martial artists, even ordinary people would fantasize about it. Jun Changshao said, this item is the same as a gun. Even if I break through Wu Huang in the future, I don't need to borrow it. I can give it to my disciples and let them transform into Iron Man. Ding. The host has spent 10,000 contribution points and obtained the mechanical armed wings X1. It has been transferred into the space ring. Ding. Sect contribution points, 299120000. Shi Wu completed the mission. The contribution points rewarded were instantly spent by him buying 2 items. There was no other way. There was no interest in saving it. It was better to spend it to make himself stronger. The mechanical armed wings was an item similar to a boxing glove. It had a strong modern aura, like a mechanical glove made of some kind of high-grade ore. Swoosh! Jun Changshao communicated with his mind. His right hand was instantly surrounded by flowing light. Pieces of iron plates appeared and then connected with each other. They covered his palm and even half of his arm. The mechanical armed wings had 3 forms. The first form was flight. The second form was combat. The third form was defense. After it was activated, it could be activated individually or in a variety of ways. Oh my god! Su Xiaoma passed by the hall and saw the shiny silver glove. He was surprised and said, "Patriarch, what is this?" Jun Changshao said, "Infinite glove." As he spoke, he stepped out and directly activated the non-flying form. In an instant, the mechanical glove flickered like fireflies and covered Jun Changshao's body. Then, a dazzling light was drawn on his back and gradually materialized. Swoosh! A pair of silver-white mechanical wings appeared. Even Jun Changshao's body was covered by some kind of special steel material. He looked like a futuristic warrior in the movies. Cool! Su Xiaoma was dumbfounded. He even thought that this might be some kind of special armor. Ta! Jun Changshao, who was wearing heavy mechanical armor, stepped into the martial arts practice field. The wings behind him were suddenly surrounded by a burning light, and his feet gradually floated. He's floating. Patriarch is floating. When the disciples saw this, they all exclaimed. Jun Changshao tried his best to balance his body to avoid falling. Soon, he flew to a height of 200 feet, and his body gradually adapted to the floating feeling. The universal talisman once allowed him to cross the void. Now that he could fly at the king's stage, the feeling was still different. Let's go! Whoosh! The mechanical wings spewed out energy. Jun Changshao instantly turned into a stream of light and sped toward the endless sky. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were dumbfounded. The Patriarch's realm aura had not reached the level of Wusheng. How could he have the power to fly for no reason? Could it be because of the strange wings behind him? Whoosh! Whoosh! Streams of light crisscrossed the sky above Iron Bone Mountain. Jun Changshao, who gradually grasped his balance, was like a big bird, flying freely in the sky. Battle form. Jun Changshao, who was flying, had a stream of light on his wrist. Layers of thick and heavy iron blocks were added to it, revealing a heavy aura. His strength had increased. Swoosh! His body turned in the sky and sped toward the ground. Then, he landed on the ground with a boom, raised his right fist and smashed it down. Boom! The sound of the explosion could be heard clearly in the Sect of all times. Buzz! Buzz! The earth shook violently. Qingyang City and even Huyang City, which were hundreds of miles away, could clearly feel the tremors. Jun Changshao's right fist bombarded the area. The ground quickly cracked and then spread in all directions. Wherever it passed, rocks and trees collapsed in rows. Whoosh whoosh! The wind howled, and the air waves exploded. Boom! Looking down from the sky, one could see that the ground had cracked to a certain extent. Then, with Jun Changshao as the center, a radius of tens of miles suddenly caved in, rolling up dust that covered the sky. This punch was quite terrifying. Swoosh! Lord Changshao controlled his wings to fly out of the dust cloud and hover in midair. His hands, which had been strengthened by Lord Changshao's power, began to bombard Lord Changshao madly. Waves of violent energy rippled out, twisting the space around him and gradually shattering it. Oh my god! Did the Patriarch really break through to Wu Huang? I can't feel the aura of an emperor at all. How can it shake the space? The disciples of the Sect of all times were shocked. Whoosh! After testing the battle form, Jun Changshao fell rapidly. Then, with a boom, he landed very elegantly on the training field. The dust settled. His body fell upside down, and his head was stuck in the soil. It was obvious that he did not control the balance of his fall well. It showed the disciples what it meant to land on the head. Chapter 613. After obtaining the body of Holy Flame and the mechanical armed wings, Jun Changshao's strength would definitely increase greatly, but as for how much, it would be impossible to analyze without actual combat. No. He had to try. Restless thoughts of courting death surged up, making Jun Patriarch want to find someone to fight. Do you still have any enemies that you haven't settled? Yes. For example, the 100 Sect Alliance. However, with June Patriarch's current strength, he could crush them with a single finger. Even if he went to find them to fight, it wouldn't show off how awesome he was. Why don't I go to Demon Fiend's Sect and Deicide Shrine? When this thought arose, he couldn't help but say, just thinking about it makes me excited. It's more than just exciting. The system said, it's also very suicidal. A fourth-rate extreme cold palace had a half-step wusheng, so a third-rate evil sect would definitely have one. Jun Changshao only thought about it, and naturally did not dare to mindlessly kill his way over. With the strongest physique of the fire element and the mechanical armed wings, if he didn't go out and act cool, he would really feel suffocated. Forget it. Jun Changshao said, let's continue to develop the sect, and then bring the disciples to challenge the Lily Holy Sect. Patriarch. Li Qingyang walked into the main hall and said, there are many more people who want to join the sect. How many? 3,000 to 4,000 people. Jun Changshao was not surprised, after all, to be able to defeat a half-step saint. As long as one was not blind, one could see that the sect's potential was huge. Inform the two elders Ning to be in charge of the recruitment. Yes. Just as Li Qingyang left, Elder Wei walked in and said, Patriarch, the sect's reputation has already been established, and there are many disciples. Why don't we set up some tests to filter out the outstanding juniors? A mature sect did not depend on how many disciples were willing to join, but it had the most professional entry process. The most common thing was that the large sects would open their doors every once in a while to recruit the elites of the world, and let them go through many tests, from their aptitude and perseverance to the survival of the fittest. That makes sense. Jun Changshao agreed. Now that the sect had a certain scale, they couldn't just carry a stool outside every day to recruit new disciples just because someone came to sign up. They had to have a systematic plan and develop in a positive manner. Elder Wei. Jun Changshao said, do you have any good suggestions? Elder Wei said, I think we can open the mountain gate at a fixed time and recruit disciples. We can also set up a series of tests. Those who pass the tests can enter the sect. Accepted. Jun Changshao said. However, how should they test him? Elder Wei said, we can learn from some of the more mature sect's assessment systems. For example, we can set up a formation on the path leading to the mountain gate. Only those who reach the gate at a set time can pass. We can leave this matter to Elder Zhen, Jun Changshao said. Elder Wei continued, the path of martial arts emphasizes nothing more than the physical body, aptitude, comprehension, and perseverance. Therefore, the later tests can also be done based on the physical body, aptitude, and comprehension. The physical body can be tested. In terms of aptitude and comprehension, it can also be determined by practicing a certain special martial skill. Jun Changshao murmured. Elder Wei said, I'm just giving a suggestion. The test will be decided by the Patriarch. That's it. Jun Changshao said, if you want to enter the sect of all times, you have to go through a test and be virtuous, intelligent, physical, and beautiful. Of course. Some applicants who were talented in formations, medicine, forging, alchemy, and so on would have a special test channel. These things naturally fell to Elder Wei and Elder Zhen. Jun Changshao was a swift and decisive person. He immediately ordered Li Qingyang to drive away all the applicants gathered at the mountain pass. Hum. Hum. On the stairs leading to the mountain gate, the array flashed. Not long after, Zhen Dejuan withdrew his hand and said, Patriarch, the soul gravity array has been successfully set up. There is double gravity inside. The soul gravity array he set up came from the Mystic 32 arrays. Not only did it have gravity, but it also had a deterrent effect on the soul. It could be said that it tested both the physical body and the soul. It was undoubtedly very suitable for the first test. Double is too little. Jun Changshao said, increase it to 5 times. The corner of Elder Zhen's mouth twitched. Isn't that a bit too ruthless? Jun Changshao said, there are only so many stairs. If we don't do something ruthless, how can we filter out outstanding talents with virtue, intelligence, and beauty? Alright. Elder Zhen increased the level of the soul gravity array to 5 times. Next, after some thought, Jun Changshao selected a few of the remaining mental cultivation methods created by Shengguan Xinyao as a test of aptitude and comprehension. These mental cultivation methods had been modified by him. If they could comprehend them within a certain period of time, they could prove themselves. Of course. Jun Patriarch was not worried that others would succeed. After all, their levels were not high. Even if they comprehended to the extreme, they would not achieve much. Qingyang, let them go up the mountain. Yes. At the foot of the mountain. The 3,000 to 4,000 martial cultivators who came to register were all dejected. Most of these people came from other counties. They had also heard about the deeds of the sect of all times and yearned to join. However, they were chased off the mountain as soon as they entered. Sigh. Someone said, back then, Jun Patriarch did not hesitate to go to 8 cities to recruit people. Why didn't I meet him? I'm afraid it will be very difficult to join the sect of all times now. This is a top 3 sect with unlimited potential. How can they recruit disciples so casually? We have missed the best opportunity, another martial artist said bitterly. They had indeed missed the best opportunity. In the past, in order to develop the sect, Jun Patriarch had used all kinds of tricks to coax and deceive people. Now that he had absolute prestige, he did not have to worry about disciples joining. Naturally, not just anyone could enter the sect. Swoosh! Li Qingyang flew over and said loudly, if you want to join the sect, you have to go through the mountain assessment. Those who succeed can stay and continue the assessment. Those who fail will be eliminated. He waved his sleeve and said, go up. Go. Go. Everyone immediately rushed over. However, as soon as they stepped on the first step, a tsunami-like force suddenly pressed down on them, causing their expressions to change drastically. It's so heavy. What kind of force is this? I feel like I'm carrying a mountain. Many ordinary martial artists only endured for a while before their faces turned hideous. Of course. There was no lack of strong people. They endured 5 times the gravity and struggled to climb up. I can't. A young man collapsed after climbing less than 10 steps. This kind of pressure on the body and soul was a very cruel torture for ordinary people. Stomp. Stomp. A muscular young man was walking at the front. He was sweating profusely as he walked step by step. Although his expression was hideous, he did not give up. Patriarch. Elder Wei, who was standing in front of the mountain gate, said, this kid is not bad. Yes. Jun Changshao said, he is worth nurturing. Although most of the 3,000 to 4,000 applicants had already collapsed, many young people with good perseverance were still bitterly holding on. After an hour, as many as 500 to 600 people had climbed up. Among them, there were those who had not come into contact with martial arts, and there were also those who had just started cultivating. Therefore, even if they were born ordinary, it was not necessarily impossible for them to climb up the mountain, and it was not impossible for them to rise from insignificance. Senior brother. Li Fei said, we are very lucky. Su Xiaoma said seriously, yes. Among the eliminated applicants, there were many who were stronger than them in terms of aptitude and cultivation. If the Patriarch had established such a strict assessment system at that time, they might not have been able to become a disciple of the sect of all times. Just as they were feeling melancholy, Jun Changshao appeared behind them. He took out his historical records and knocked them on the head one by one, saying, what are you all standing there for? Hurry up and carry those applicants who are already lying on the ground. Yes. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei rubbed their heads and flew down. The inferiority complex that was about to rise was also knocked away. It was lucky to be able to join the sect of all times in advance. It was also an opportunity. What they could do was work hard and fight. Chapter 6:14. 500 to 600 candidates were brought into the sect of all times and stood in the arena for the second round of assessment. The content of the assessment was simple. They had to comprehend the mental cultivation technique given to them within a specified time. Some of the martial cultivators with good aptitude and comprehension were shocked after memorizing the chant. The mental cultivation technique provided by the sect of all times did not seem to be of a high level, but it was definitely of a higher level than their own mental cultivation technique. No wonder it's a top 3 sect. One of the martial cultivators said to himself. Even the mental cultivation technique used for the assessment is so powerful. If one was lucky enough to become a disciple, the level of their martial arts techniques would definitely be even higher. Many of the applicants had a strong desire to join the sect of all times, so they were all trying their best to comprehend the mental cultivation technique. 4 hours later, the second round of assessment ended. There were more than 200 people who had comprehended the mental cultivation technique. There was no doubt that the applicants who passed the 2 rounds of assessment were very good in terms of physique, perseverance, aptitude, and comprehension. Jiang Ye was in charge of recruiting the applicants who passed the assessment. Ding! Ding! Jun Changshao, who was in the main hall, heard the notification. The total number of disciples had increased to 10221, with a total of 3,211 contribution points. Out of 3,000 to 4,000 people, only 220 were recruited. This ratio was a little low. Jun Changshao did not mind. In his opinion, the new disciples who passed the 2 rounds of assessment would only be easier to nurture and save more resources. The next day, the sect of all times announced that on the first day of every month, the sect would open its doors to accept disciples. Only those who passed the assessment could become inner disciples. Not bad. They were inner disciples. This was another level that Jun Changshao had set. Only by proving themselves could they be promoted to outer disciples. The disciples of the sect of all times were divided into 3 categories: inner, outer, and inner. At the same time, there were differences in the resources they enjoyed. Other than some necessary resources, if the disciples wanted to grow faster, they had to actively complete missions and use their points to exchange for martial arts resources, such as chi-gathering elixirs and chi-gathering pills. After the announcement, all the martial cultivators in southwest Yangzhou were talking about it. It was normal for a sect to require one to pass the assessment to join. However, what made them speechless was that the sect of all times opened its doors to recruit disciples every month. Wasn't this a little too diligent? It couldn't be helped. Jun Patriarch wanted to recruit elites, but he also wanted to make the sect stronger as soon as possible. He could only shorten the time. Otherwise, it would take a very long time to reach 100,000 disciples. The various facilities were getting more and more complete, and the sect of all times was more lively than before. Some disciples were cultivating, while others were frequently entering and exiting the mission pavilion to receive missions or exchange for rewards. Jiang Ye and the Ning brothers would hold a class every once in a while, explaining the difficult problems in martial arts. Elder Wei led the members of the medicine hall to continue planting medicinal herbs, while Elder Zhen continued to nurture the formation masters. He stood in the main hall. Jun Changshao's spiritual senses filled the entire sect. Seeing that everyone was busy, a gratified look appeared on his face. It had been 2 years since he had transmigrated. The once decadent and desolate sect now possessed unlimited potential under his own development. He was truly filled with a sense of accomplishment. Qingyang. Jun Changshao said, "There are more and more disciples. Make a good plan and continue to expand the sect." After a few modifications by Li Qingyang, the sect of all times could accommodate 10,000 to 20,000 disciples. However, it was still a little crowded and needed to be expanded. The mountain where the sect was located still had a lot of value to be developed. Patriarch Li Qingyang said, "I have already designed a lot of blueprints. I am just waiting for you to make a decision." "Is that so?" Jun Changshao jumped down from the roof and said, "Give it to me. Let me take a look." Entering the main hall, Li Qingyang waved his hand and took out all the blueprints that he had been researching in his free time. There were more than 20 types. The blueprints were very detailed. Wing rooms, attics, greenery, ponds, and even toilets were all included. "I'll take this." Jun Changshao pointed at a blueprint and said. He chose the largest and most complicated one designed by Li Qingyang. Since it had become a sect, it had to be bigger and more luxurious. Only then would it appear magnificent. However, the cost was also very high. "Here." Jun Changshao threw the space ring over and said, "There are 10 million taels inside. You must choose the best and most expensive ones to buy the construction materials." "Yes, sir." Li Qingyang took the money and immediately began to move the ground. This time, he did not invite any craftsmen to expand the sect. Instead, he brought his fellow disciples with him. When a group of Wuzong and martial kings built a house, their speed would definitely be much faster than ordinary people. The saddest one was Peppa the wild boar. The medicine garden was no longer expanding, and it had a rare chance to rest, but it was once again sent to transport soil. However, the little guy had changed quite a bit. Not only did it grow taller, its body was also very muscular and beautiful. Don't misunderstand. It was not an evolution like Little Dragon, but it had put in too much effort and was tempered out alive. "What kind of species are you?" Jun Changshao muttered. It used to look like a pig, but now it was completely different. The system said, with the earth attribute, this mirage beast should not be ordinary. It looks a bit useless now, but it might evolve one day. Is that so? Jun Changshao was looking forward to the day when the little guy would evolve. Hoot hoot. At this moment, Peppa the wild boar, which had just turned the ground over, fell straight to the ground. Jun Changshao shook his head and summoned the green dragon crescent blade. He said coldly, "If you dare to play dead again, I will kill you immediately." Swish! Peppa the wild boar straightened its body instantly and continued to work energetically. Screech above the Heavenly Mandate Academy, the cry of the eagle beast could be heard. Immediately, the black eagle of the Demon Ridge flapped its wings and slowly landed on the field, stirring up a gust of wind. "It's Teacher Jun!" All the disciples exclaimed in admiration. Under their gaze, Jun Changshao walked into the meeting hall with his sunglasses on. This time, there was only one purpose for his visit, and that was to thank the academy for sending strong cultivators to protect him in secret. Dean Situ. After sitting down, Jun Changshao said nothing and put 2 bottles of body-shaping elixir on the table. He said, "Thank you for your help not long ago. Jun is very grateful. I offer these body-shaping elixir as a token of my respect." The body-shaping elixir sold by the AI family? Situ Haoyun asked in surprise. Jun Changshao said, "That's right. Jun Patriarch is the honorary teacher of our academy. It is natural for him to help when he is in trouble," Situ Haoyun said as he took the elixir away. He did not reject it at all. Jun Changshao chatted with him for a while and then went to the certification headquarters. He presented 2 bottles of body-shaping elixir and then went to the City Lord's office to visit City Lord Mu. Mu Changhong was very hospitable. Especially at the banquet, every time he looked at this rising star, he would smile. He even changed the way he addressed Yi Futian instead of Jun Patriarch. City Lord Mu. Jun Changshao cupped his hands and said, "I am busy with the sect affairs. I will take my leave first." City Lord Mu personally went out to see him off. After returning to the sect, before Jun Changshao could enter the main hall, Yi Xingqian walked over and said, "Patriarch, I am going to challenge the geniuses on the Gathering of Heroes list." After obtaining the right to challenge, he did not challenge them immediately. Instead, he continued to cultivate in the sect. Now that he had become a martial king, the time had come. "Patriarch, I will go too," Xiao Ziji said. Jun Changshao said, "Approved." Therefore, Yi Xingqian and Xiao Ziji left the sect of all times after dinner. The entire Jianghu was about to become chaotic. Because Night Emperor's idea was to start challenging the geniuses at the bottom of the human list and climb to the top of the heaven list step by step. Junior brother. On the way, Xiao Ziji said, "Where are we going?" Yi Xingchen said, "Let's go to the nearest city first and obtain the latest Gathering of Heroes list. Then, we will challenge them one by one." Northwest He State, Qin family. Bang! With a loud explosion, the gate of the mansion that had existed for hundreds of years was smashed into pieces. Several servants guarding the gate fell to the ground in a sorry state. Xiao Zuiji was dumbfounded. "Junior brother Yi, we are here to challenge, not to destroy the place."